Hi everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Endless Celts Podcast. I do appreciate that there's been a week or two, a 2 week break in between people with family commitments, work commitments, and also holidays for the lucky son who can go on holiday and enjoy the sun at this time of year. But
Fine.
first of all, I'm delighted to be joined by McGinty. How are you?
Not too bad, Stephen. It's been a few weeks since I've been on. In fact, I think just briefly touching on it before we went live, I don't think I've been on since the end of the transfer window. We certainly know there's been a lot to talk about, and I've been quiet on it. On as far as the podcast is concerned, all that shit considered, excuse my language. I'm pretty good, man. Pretty good. Pretty excited.
You say you've been quiet, but really we've censored you. We've censored the group chat. We've censored the podcast as best as we can. We don't want to get involved in that stuff. I'm only joking.
I'm pretty sure everybody's muted that group chat just so they can't listen.
Nah, there's definitely good things to get stuck into. You're right. First of all, the first comment in from Heavy Vibes that the time's up for this board. We'll be definitely talking about the charlatans that run the football club at some point during this podcast. And Gav, mate, how you doing, buddy? You keeping well?
I'm not bad. I'm not bad. Had a chippy before we went live. Sitting down with the missus, and stuck on Netflix. And you know that program, the Guinness family. There's like a new Netflix drama about the Guinness family, about like back like 150 years ago, whenever it was set. So she stuck on the first episode of that. It actually looked quite interesting, but I had to head upstairs for this, which I am more than happy to do. So. But in terms of like being a Celtic fan, I think I'm still well and truly scunnered. But to kind of help out my lack of enthusiasm for being a Celtic fan right now, I've got some red wine. I've not had red wine on the podcast for quite a number of months because I want to behave myself. But I figured that if I'm still feeling scunnered about Celtic, the red wine might help me kind of talk a wee bit more about things that I don't wish to discuss. So we'll get into it. But I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. As we said earlier on, we're still healthy. We're still breathing. How are you, Stephen?
Mate, I'm the same old. It's been 4 weeks of myself since being on the podcast, obviously due to having the kids and stuff on the weekend. But free weekend today, or this weekend, sorry, going to have a glass of, let's say, I don't know what this is, fruity rosé. I think it is a light and juicy rosé. I won't tell you the circumstances of how it ended up in my possession because it could lead me down a garden path I don't want to talk about. But I'm looking forward to finishing that off and having a good chat with you guys and the people in the comments. Stephen Murdoch has joined us as well. We do appreciate, by the way, there's a lot of live Celtic content on a Friday night, so we appreciate the people who will catch up after they watch their other podcasts and shows. So we do appreciate people who tune in after. But McGinty, it's one of these ones. You try and think of your head. Where do you start? What do you begin with? Because obviously, since we've been on, we've played, Partick Thistle in the Cup. We've dismantled them 4-0. We've had the game against Red Star over in Belgrade, one each draw. Some say a good point. Some would say a missed opportunity. And then in amongst all that, we've had obviously the unrest between the supporters and the Celtic boardroom. Rightfully so, in my opinion. Obviously, due to the lack of activity in the summer transfer window. The hit piece that was wrote about Brendan Rodgers in the Sun, a club insider leaking information, and then all the rumours about obviously Peter Lawwell stepping down at the AGM, but obviously that's not confirmed. It's just hearsay for now. But how are you feeling, mate? There's a whole lot to unpack. I'll leave it to you. Where do you want to start, first of all?
I generally thought I wasn't going to get an opportunity, and I was okay not having to go through the whole spiel, but you've kind of just set me up as a free rein just to rant. And plus the fact that Gavin's on the red wine, it's clearly going to be a long night for us tonight, so I think I've got time for it. Now, I'll try and keep it somewhat brief. I know we'll discuss various points that has happened over the last few weeks, let alone, obviously, the past 7 days, football-wise. But as far as the whole, shall we call it civil unrest,
Civil war,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fully on board and fully on side with the unrest, with the war, with the supporters groups. I know it is extremely hard to unite 60,000 fans in the stadium, let alone 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 out with it, just as Scotland, if not more and further beyond. it's a really hard thing to do. You said there, Stephen, that it's kind of like kicked on after the disappointing transfer window this summer. And I know this is not what you meant, but it's so much more than that, Stephen.
Of course it is. Of course it is, yeah.
It is, at this point, it's decades of mismanagement in the transfer markets. It's decades of the same old excuses that come out, which, yes, sometimes can have merit. But if you're telling me for 20 seasons in a row that January is a really hard time to do business, and then get to the summer window and not do the fucking business that was really hard in January, alluding that it's easier in summer, but get to the last week as we did this summer before we actually kick ourselves up the arse to try and do something. I mean, we left it so freaking late that we actually signed Ian Atchell after the window closed, after he'd been released on a free contract by Sevilla. I listened to Brendan Rodgers' press conference earlier on today, and he made points about that, exactly Ian Atchell being signed after. And I'm paraphrasing like fuck, but he made a comment that when the list was presented to him of strikers and players that he wanted, Ian Atchell was very much at the top of that list as somebody that he really wanted to bring in, which I fully agree and I fully believe, or 100% believe him, but he was only made available as a free agent very late in the window. So what point did that list come to him with Ian Atchell's name on it that made him say, yeah, go get that guy on my list? Now that's us finally getting, Rodgers' top target on a list, but when did he get that list? Because we should have signed a striker 6 weeks previous, realistically. Mm-hmm. But we're not going to sign any actual 6 weeks previous if he's tied up at Sevilla, because how many millions would that have cost us? Lord knows. We've waited to then, so I can't believe I'm on mad tangents here. You've set me up, Stephen. I can't believe that the only reason we signed that caliber of striker was because he became a freebie. Were we not going to sign anyone at all in that sense?
I think in regards to, you can come back to me here obviously, but in regards to the list, I think the list that he was talking about was probably presented late in the window because we missed out on targets, and obviously the whole Daisa Mieta situation that fell through. He didn't get the move because we missed out on a couple of positions to strengthen in. You look at Ian Atchell, and let's be bluntly honest here, he didn't do anything at Middlesbrough, and he didn't do anything at Sevilla. He's had a bad year in football, and obviously Celtic have signed players like that before and polished them up and turned them around. Sometimes have sold them on, and sometimes have kept them, like Craig Gordon, for example, who came back from that horrible injury spell that he had, and Stevie Woods trained him back up, and he was our number one for 3 or 4 years, and a fantastic servant to the club during that time. And maybe Ian Atchell can reach them heights. And you look at his performances or his impact that he's had so far, McGinty, and you have to say it's been a positive one. I thought his impact against Red Star was very telling, because Daisa Mieta didn't have a great game. As soon as Ian Atchell came onto the pitch, we were able to have a focal point. I thought his goal was fantastic. He killed the pass stone dead, and he had the composure to lift it over the keeper into looks like the top corner, but it wasn't. But it was still a great finish, and it's been an overall positive one. But again, you're falling into the realms of do we praise the board for this signing? Do we give them a pat on the back to get Ian Atchell in, or do we just accept he was a panic signing and he might work out in the end?
So somewhere in between, but leaning more to the Rodgers side, and also we need to read between the lines and make our own assumptions up and speculation. But if we're saying that list wasn't presented to Rodgers until late in the window, until after Ian Atchell was released, probably even to the point of it was a list shown to him of free targets after the window closed.
Bamford was on that list.
Bamford's on the list, aye. The reason why I won't give credit to the board if Ian Atchell continues as he is and becomes the player that we hope and expect he should be able to become for us, it's because it's not somebody that they've actively went out to sign as a part of a plan, a part of a strategy, part of a long-term understanding of what they were trying to do with the squad and the depth of it. It's a panic signing that's basically his name's only on that list because of 2 reasons. He's free and Rodgers wants/knows him. And that's why Rodgers took him, because he knows what he can get from him. And going from Rodgers' press conference and how he speaks of Ian Atchell, I'm excited for him. Now that I've seen, obviously we've all seen the horror videos and clips of his time at Middlesbrough. He's vastly overweight and stuff like that. And then we all seen the self-training videos in Manchester scoring into his mates in the local park. It's a bit weird, and it's not helping the situation when he's first moving in to the club. But see, after a couple of weeks now, he looks like he's actually up in his game from what we perceived it would have been. He's looking part of a picture for this season that Rodgers is willing to utilise. It's a great signing, I think, not long term, short to medium term, mostly for this year and next year if he signs the extension on it. And I think it could work out for us, but it's not by design of the board. It's going back to the Rodgers' little black book of who can you get to dig us out of a hole, because, again, Ian Atchell was not on that list to begin with. He was not part of the plan. We had clearly needed a striker before we let Maeda or Ida go. We weren't planning that. We weren't planning Ian Atchell. It's not something to praise the board about if this works out. I want to go back just a wee bit before Gavin. You probably want to come in at some point as well, I'm guessing. But talking about the overall, how do you unite 60,000 fans, sort of thing, hundreds of thousands of fans elsewhere in the country and the world. It's really fucking hard to do it, guys. It's really hard to do it, and I'm speaking for myself, not the podcast when I say what I'm about to say. But see that open letter that we all signed, like 420 odd of us, be it fan media groups, be it supporters associations and all the rest of it. They've obviously now had their meeting at Gracie's. They've developed a steering group, as they called it at the time, which has now become the Celtic Fan Collective. They're planning different versions of protest and action to try and make their voice heard, or somewhat unheard, depending on how you want to look at it, with the upcoming 3 games of 12-minute silence, then 29, and I think it's 32 for the next 3 games rolling.
Hold on, is it not just a minute silence?
See, I've seen this asked on Twitter as well. It is a bit unsure and confusing, so I don't know if it's for the full 12 or if it's just going to be on the 12th. We'll be quiet for a minute. I don't know. I don't know what the clash is.
They're not going to be quiet for just 1 minute. That is a daft thing to do. It's not been explained. It might be kind of open to interpretation, but surely, like the first one was 12 minutes. Okay, so in the last game, what was it? Kilmarnock, was it?
Yeah, coming in 12 minutes late. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's probably going to be something like that. Maybe not a late entry to the stadium, but it'll either be that or just like being quiet for X amount of time. But they're not going to shush for just 60 seconds. That's silly.
See, initially that's how I took it, Gavin, was we'll be quiet for the whole 12 minutes, and then we'll be quiet for the whole 29 minutes, and then 32 on the third game. Yeah. I've seen people commenting on social media, on Twitter, on some of the message boards and stuff as well. People aren't enthused about that. There's always the split opinion on things when it comes to Celtic fans, when it comes to all football fans, to be fair. And it's how to unite 60,000 in the stadium, silent 29 minutes and 30 minutes is not going to work high. It's trying to unite, and I get that some people will say, if you're going to be quiet for 30 odd minutes, how's that supporting the team? Not theoretically, in the moment it looks like you're not because you're being quiet. However, it's the long-term goal of what we're trying to achieve with that would support the club and the squad long-term by having some sort of change at the boardroom level, be it how we operate with the current idiots in charge, or be it that somehow we managed to, which is another discussion for another time, how we managed to actually change personnel at a boardroom level, which obviously is not going to happen from us just, doing a wee silent protest for 12 minutes at a time. It's going to be a lot of small things. It's going to be a lot of progression. It's going to be months, if not years, before you see action. But if anybody wants to see change at the club, we need to start somewhere. And for me, this is where it's my voice saying this, not the podcast itself. So I'm not going to say this on behalf of you guys or anybody else. I think we all need to get behind this collective, behind the movement that has started, that has got the support of, the Irish Association of Supporters Clubs. It's got the CSA support. It's got support from various other, the Celtic Trust and the ultra groups are supporting everything. I think we all need to, even though we might not agree with every action possibly being taken, I think we need to unite behind it as one voice to try and push forward the inevitable change that we're hoping to achieve at some point.
Yeah, and I understand that the whole objective, well, the Celtic collective as well, and what they're trying to achieve, Gavin, to bring you in the conversation. Gillian McAndrews has made some good points. Only way the silent protest is going to work is to stop buying merch. Over 30 million was pocketed last year between Celtic and Adidas. So you can't hit them in the pocket, so to speak. But it's a situation where I've never seen it this bad before, and we've had horrible seasons like COVID, for example. And some people in this podcast experienced the 90s and that, and just horrible times in general. But for me personally, as a Celtic supporter, this is definitely the worst I've ever experienced it. And albeit we're still a winning team, we're still winning trophies. Just seeing that disconnect and seeing the kind of vehicles for change. And I know there was another thing set up. I think I've seen it in the Celtic State of Mind today. The Celtic FC Limited or something like that was set up with David Lowe and a person called Smiley and another guy who are trying to find shares and hopefully get 1 to 5% of the club so they can get involved in voting systems and things of that nature. So there's other ways you can go around this if you don't want to necessarily take a part of the side of protest and that. But we will come on to the performances of the team, by the way, shortly, and players we've brought in like Iheanacho. But where do you stand on all this, Gav? It is a divisive thing at the moment between fans. I've seen a lot of, not infighting, but a lot of different opinions. Even on our podcast chat, people have different opinions, and it's about finding that middle ground of what works for everybody. And that what I'm afraid it might happen is, for example, this 12-minute silence. If there's supporters who want to sing, what if they get chastised? What if they get shouted at? I hope it doesn't fall into that type of stuff. And I know I've seen online that people supporting people's choices, but sometimes in the heat of the moment, things might be said or took out of context, and it creates another atmosphere within the ground. So I hope it doesn't go that way. And I know, McGinty, you're saying that you're speaking for yourself, but you can add me onto that list as well. If anything there is to drive change within Celtic Football Club, I'm fully behind it, as long as it's done in the right way, a positive way. Progressive thinking, always open for dialogue. And I know our club isn't, but always keep the communication lines open for change. And someone will have to fall on the sword in the Celtic boardroom. There will have to be a sacrifice, so to speak. But Gav, this whole build-up, these different vehicles for change, I mean, where do you stand on everything at the minute?
If I'm being honest, I'm quite disappointed how things have kind of manifested itself. I think the majority of Celtic fans, especially the three of us, we're all in unison that there's massive discontent within the Celtic support, and we feel that change is needed. I think there's been a pattern of behaviour. That what happened this summer was not a one-off incident. There's a track record, a pattern of behaviour which we find is unacceptable, where we're not maximising our potential as a club. So we want change from the people in leadership positions, the board, and the largest shareholder, Dermot Desmond, who, despite only having roughly about 35% shares, he is the one who kind of calls the shots. You kind of saw it whenever, just before Ange left for Tottenham, whenever they had that meeting at the hotel, and it was him, Chris Mackay, Nicholson, Peter Lowell, I think, but Dermot Desmond was there as well, because they can all get together and say, this is what we recommend, but they're really looking to say, do you approve? Can we get your green light for this to Dermot Desmond? So, look, as fans, I think we're right to take a stand. But what I felt was that in order for us to make a powerful statement for meaningful change, we needed a voice, a face, someone recognisable, someone where we can say, this is the guy, or this is a small group of people who we're getting behind, a kind of a symbol as such. But I think that there's kind of almost like too many chefs right now, and I get that it's a democratic process of what the people have came together through Celtic fans, and they're voting for particular action. But I just think that what we've seen so far is quite weak, and we've got a number of different theories about what we should do to try to impact change, whether it be to hurt them in the pocket. If you hurt them in the pocket, how powerful is that going to be? Because they've got the rainy day fund. They've already hidden that away. So if we hit them in the pocket, then they can say, well, we're going to use that. So we can't really smoke them out that way. By not going to games, not showing up to games, or showing up late for games, how will that really provoke the board? People say, well, it's going to hurt the team more, and that's a valid point. If I'm a footballer and I don't see my fans there, I'll feel disheartened. Obviously, you get paid to play, but we saw it in COVID as well. Whenever you don't have fans, the performances can be affected. So there's a number of different ways to kind of to look at this, but just from what I've seen so far, it's been weak. Whenever I think back to the Kilmarnock one, where everybody says, right, what we're going to do is we're going to go in 12 minutes late, and then the camera is panned to the Celtic fans, and you've already got a large amount of people already in the stadium just waiting, and then you've got plenty of people outside as well. So it was disjointed, and that just doesn't send a strong message to the board because that's what we're trying to do. That's the main aim. We want to provoke change, and I just think that with the Celtic fan population, we've got so much potential, and there's a lot of intelligent people in that kind of support. But what I'm seeing, it looks weak. It looks disjointed. Too many chefs. We need to have something more powerful behind us to achieve the aims that we want. So I support action, but I just think that it started off badly, and whenever you start off a protest badly, then it might lose faith, and before it's really picked up any momentum. That's what my fear is. I think we've made first step forward has been poor. It's not been assertive enough.
That's what I mean with my kind of call out for us to be united, even though we might not agree on the action being taken, be it the 12-minute coming in late, be it the silence for 12, 29 and 32 minutes. We need to unite behind it. We might not agree that it might do a little bit of harm in those first 12 minutes if we're silent. Maybe the crowds, the players are a bit unease with the eeriness of the quietness of the stadium. But I would argue that the players clearly know what's going on around them. They know what's going on with the support and the feelings. We've had Callum McGregor and we've had Brendan Rodgers saying practically the same things that the fans were saying in the latter stages of the transfer window, and since then, they know the frustration that we have, and they're in support. I think they'd be in support of the fans trying to make some sort of stance in any way, shape, or form that we can do. So I'm not sure that it would detriment them too much, because I think some of them might be buoyed by it, knowing that the fans are on their side. The fans are doing their bit to try and evoke some change as well. But again, as you said, Gavin, with the 12-minute late thing at Kilmarnock, some fans were already in there. I think it was Paul John Dykes had said that some whiz kid had dotted all the heads on a screenshot of the stadium and said that it was like 25% of fans had made it into the stadium at that point. Mm-hmm. Still, you're talking 75% of the fans backed the protest, but that still visually looked like quite a lot of people in the stands if we take those numbers as accurate. And you might disagree with it, but those fans who were in there, they had their own banner as well in their way of protesting against the board, which is great to see. They're taking some sort of action themselves as well. So even though there's fans in there, they still obviously have similar feelings of desire to have a change. But that being so disjointed, as you say, Gav, for me, that's why I'm trying to call it out. We need to, although we might not agree with 12 minutes coming in late, I think it's a stronger message if everybody did it. Even if you don't fully agree with it, you're agreeing with it, the choice to try and make change and having some sort of action, then get behind it, because but so many of us, we're not all going to agree on every single action. So to argue and nitpick at what action I like and what action I don't like, what one am I going to take part in, what one am I not going to, that's going to just spread. And as more weeks tick by that it's ineffective protests and ineffective actions, we run the risk that it does die out quicker than we would like it to. Whereas if we all just unify behind it, again, we might not agree with coming in late, but if we know that it's going to be part of a hopeful bigger picture, bigger sequence of events that gives us a bigger opportunity, I think it's getting behind it.
I don't mean to piss on what you say, but it sounds a bit wishy-washy whenever you say if it leads to something more tangible, more powerful. We need that right now. We can't start off weak and then build up to a sprint. We need to be come out punching right now. Like when I'm going to Parkhead tomorrow for the kickoff, and ideally what I would want to see is your the boys in the Green Brigade out with like massive banners, like the energy that they put into and the talent that people have to put into really intelligent ideas with the tifos and stuff like that. I want to go up to Parkhead tomorrow and see things like that. We won't be allowed to bring that into the stadium because it'll be anti-board and those things get vetted and censored. But they should be able to display anti-board banners on the Celtic way and things like that, and that'll get attention. That'll get it's the visual demonstration, which is so important. If that can get picked up by social media, by television crews, and actual fans going to the grounds, if they can see that, for me, that's more powerful than some people sauntering in at 12 minutes and some people already in the half hour before kickoff.
McLaughlin, sorry, Steve, quickly before. It's the last bit I'll chip in, sorry, pal. P. McLaughlin put it in earlier as well, and it's something I mentioned on the forums at some point, and I fully agree. Personally, I'm going to try and back everything that they do because I feel like being involved in it is great. But personally, my option, if I was given the choice, is exactly what P. McLaughlin said. Protest before and after the game outside Celtic Way. Throw tomatoes at the board as they come into the stadium if you have to, but when the players are coming off the bus, give them that big cheer, give them that big backing. And then once we all go into the stadium and we're all there, bring the colour and the noise. And see if it involves 90 minutes of singing sack the board, fuck Peter Lawwell. Batter in. Let's keep doing it. Let's have the banners out there. Let's make a voice heard at that time. But the protest before and after, I think, would be quite strong and powerful. Now, it doesn't immediately show it on Sky Sports that you're protesting with 1,000 people outside Celtic Park. But if that's every single home game, that eventually gets picked up in the media properly. That becomes something of a story that the fans are consistently doing that. I'd be all for that. Sorry, Steve.
No, I was going to add to what you were saying. I think the best thing so far, protest-wise, has been the demonstration at Firhill in the Partick Thistle match. The visual of, all the people, majority of support holding up the photographs of, I think it was Nicholson and Lawwell on it, with the cross between them to say out. That was the best visual representation of what everyone wants in terms of seeing it on the TV cameras, and obviously the cameras panned to them and they were looking at their phone, looked a wee bit, shaky seeing that. So I'm with Gav in that aspect of things. I mean, the Green Brigade, North Curve and the boys are really smart and coming up with these ideas, these banners, to get the point across. And we've already had a few people in the comments saying they're not going to take part in the silence, because in my opinion, you can't tell people how to support the team. You can't. People pay their money. If you want to go and shout and sing, do that. I'm not going to be told by someone to sit in the seat and be quiet. If someone told me how to do it in my life now, I'd be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" You know what I mean? It's people. Like, people have different ways of voicing their opinions, and like you said, McGinty, the people who were in Rugby Park had a banner. They were still showing their discontent with the board. So there is different ways to do it. People are spending their hard-earned money to go. Their kids are down to see Celtic play, or maybe they're taking a family member for the first time. And I don't think the majority of fans want to sit in silence and just, it's a bit of a catch-22 situation. I said I do support it, but I understand why fans might not want to do that. The silence thing, for example, and going in 12 minutes late. There was people with disabled, family members in that Rugby Park game who needed early entry. There was young kids, young families there. So I understand what I wanted to go in. If I was there with my 2 wee girls, I'd be like, get me out of this crowd. I'm getting to sit down. I'll still show you support in terms of backing what you're doing, but I'm getting to sit down to get them away from all this. So I understand it from different perspectives and different angles. But, I mean, Gav, are you saying then, if we can't get all on the same page with the Celtic collective in terms of the silences and the entries into the stadiums and all that type of stuff, I mean, hold on a wee second. I hope you're not aiming that towards me, big man. In terms of getting the whole support together, would you be more supportive of visual stuff like banners, the placards, the get the board out chants, all that type of thing?
Yeah, I think the visual demonstrations are just far more striking, far more provocative. But whenever you've got a very, very weak action where you've got let's walk in at 12 minutes, or let's be quiet for 12 minutes. And you've got some people doing it, some people not. It defeats the purpose because it doesn't show unity amongst the fans. And the reason that some people are choosing to do it and some people are not choosing to do it is because it doesn't strike them as saying, this is something I can get behind. We need to rally behind a powerful message by a face, by somebody that you can look at and say, this is the guy who, like, not dictatorship or whatever, but somebody that you can relate to, who is selfless enough to give his own time, to be the face for it.
What you want is Chris Sutton to face it up, don't you? You want Big Sutton to face it up, and you know he'd be great at it.
I think he's got a cushy wee job. I think he likes his wee joust with Chris Boyd, and he's always stood up for Celtic. But I don't think that would be his vocation, and it would take a very, very brave person to do that, But what? Now I'm talking about something I don't know, but surely there are clubs around the world who have been in bad situations by selfish owners, by negligent owners. And surely there have been instances of the fans rising up and taking charge and putting in some sort of action plan where it has actually gained them support, where it has actually allowed them to have more control over their own club slowly but surely. So surely there are examples in the world where that's happened with football clubs. And is there anything that we can replicate? But I just think that the actions that we've taken thus far have been poor, and that's why it's been a lukewarm response by some fans. We need stronger action, more centralised faces who are driving this. Because right now it looks quite faceless. We've just got a list of factions who are all democratically chosen for a direction to go in, but it's not strong enough. It's too diluted, I think.
Look what happened in Ireland all these years. Different factions don't help anything. But see to be fair, what do you think of the likes of? And by the way, just to say, point out as well there. I seen your comment, Rubber Duck. All is good, no problem. See the. I mean, we had an ex-player, an ex-manager there recently. I don't know if you've seen the interview, Neil Lennon McGinty. Did you see that one?
No, I've not
coming out.
No, yet.
Basically. And like what Gav said, we need someone to really spearhead this. I do agree, like a figurehead, that type of thing. But you got the likes of Neil Lennon coming out again, and we all know why. Look, it's his own prerogative, but he's coming out saying the board are amazing. Mr. Desmond, as he calls him, has delivered unparalleled success to the club, and basically we should be grateful and of the direction the club's going in. And like you said as well, this starts way before a transfer window. This is years and years of issues and problems and things like that nature really coming to the boil. But it doesn't help the cause when you've got the likes of Lenny coming out back in the board and the lack of maybe, as Gav said, like I don't want to say a Celtic celebrity, but an ex-player coming out backing up the campaign. I know Chris Sutton spoke about it loosely, but he hasn't really said he supports it or doesn't. He's brought it up on a few occasions in terms of driving change at the club. But when these ex-players and ex-managers who hold such high status as Celtic come out and say the board's done this and done that, it kind of goes against what the fans are doing. It's a slap in the face, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think we all know my opinion on Neil Lennon, and it's around about. Sorry to take that one off you. It's around about that is my opinion on Neil Lennon as well. It's partly why I've not bothered to seek out that video, the interview with him. It's exactly what it's going to be, as you say. That he's clearly going to defend and back the men who have literally given him millions of pounds over his career. That's not a criticism. That's not a wrong thing to do. He's been paid a good wage for a good job that he's done for the majority of his time at Celtic. But he's obviously, especially, I'm still caught up on it. I know I am. But if you take how his second tenure panned out and all the rest of it, how he got the job in the shower, how it all panned out eventually and all the rest of it, he knows where his bread's buttered, sort of thing. I'm not going to look into what Lennon says in that regard and take it to heart too much. I think we all expect Lennon to defend Mr. Desmond. I think we all expected him to be on the side of the fans are entitled, because he's came out and said that about us before. And that's his prerogative, as you say, Stephen. Back to the Chris Sutton thing, as Gavin says, it's tongue in cheek to say it. He's not going to be the face of it. I believe he's probably on, I'll say it from my point of view, our side, but I don't think he'll ever come out properly and be like in the trenches with us for it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, exactly. He's never going to come out and be in the trenches with us, because it's going to put him in a situation with his current employers, and it'll put him in a situation with his friends, Neil Lennon being one of them. I mean, we'd all love Sutton to be the face of it. We'd all love Larson to be the face of it, but Larson's not the type of person either. I think it's going to have to take somebody, not an ex-player. It's going to have to take somebody who is a prolific figure, be it a celebrity of some kind, to put his neck on the line for the supporters, that it's not going to actually risk his reputation. Who that person is, who knows? I mean, we're not realistically ever going to get a Jared Butler.
This guy.
Get Michael Stewart. Although he'll probably change his mind about 2 weeks' time anyway, no matter what he says.
Can I ask you, and I'm probably jumping the gun, so if you want to bring it back after this question, Stephen, sorry. See that kind of the end goal. The end goal is presumably Dermot Desmond, who is the absentee landlord, for him to vacate. So say, for example, that his son, I forget his name, say, for example, his son doesn't have the appetite. He's like, the football business isn't for me. I've seen the fact that my dad got, I don't want it. So say the end goal, okay, is that Dermot Desmond is willing to sell to a buyer. Obviously, the kind of the German model of like the kind of 50+1 situation where it's the fan ownership, that seems at this moment a million miles away for us to achieve that. But say if we got a quick sale in the next year, 2 years down the line, where it was a global entity, a corporate entity, or an Arab oilman, you know what I mean? Like, see, people have said it, I'm sure a lot of people have said that, be careful what you wish for. So where would you be willing to draw the line and say, no, better the devil you know, rather than take a gamble with somebody whose principles are quite questionable?
So
every rich businessman has questionable principles, by the way.
They're pretty much no rich businessman without. Maybe I'll draw the line at the Arab money, because of the more ethical political views and differences in the cultures of.
Let's not go deep into it, though. I don't
want to, because it doesn't make them bad people, sort of thing. Because they have a different outlook on life and on the world and that such. It's not a bad thing, but obviously it doesn't align with a lot of people in our culture, shall we say. So maybe there's a line there. I don't know. For me personally, I'm not going to answer that fully beyond that. But I'll bring it back to the stage of, the global sporting enterprise, the Red Bulls of the world, shall we say. I'd probably be all for it to a point. Now, I would take a Red Bull situation type corporation taking us over, purely because they will run us like a proper modern day sporting entity. We would surely come in with all the wonders of what we've been asking for years, of directors of footballs, proper sports science, proper recruitment infrastructure, proper coaching infrastructure that's not just John Kennedy, Gavin Strachan, and whoever else's boy who's over the age of 25 wants a job next week.
Craig Strachan.
I would take a corporate enterprise that's willing to put in a modern sporting structure into the club. But I draw the line probably at that point if it was a Red Bull wanting to come in and say we're now Red Bull Glasgow and change our colours on the market. No, they can draw the line at that. I'll take Red Bull, but you're not changing anything to do with our name or our colours or anything like that, if that makes sense.
I mean, for me,
that's no problem. That's not stadium name.
For me, like, Big Rob come in there, I just want to address a point. He's saying that we're talking about Neil Lennon, but not addressing the three guys who set up that limited company. I did actually bring that up. I think it's called Celtic FC Limited. And from what I'm led to believe, Big Rob, I don't know much about them. I know David Lowe was a part of the movement in the 90s when Fergus came in. I know your man Smiley, who was on Paul John's podcast today, or John Paul, whatever way his name's said. He was a chairman at Partick Thistle, and he's run a lot of companies. And I think the other fella, I don't know his name, but I think it's Paul Smith or something like that. But looking from the outset, it looks like they're trying to find missing shares, a bit like what the Celtic Trust used to do. I don't know if they've merged or they've joined forces, and their aim is to get a controlling stake, 1 to 5%, I believe, so they can have rounds and voting and things of that nature.
Yeah,
try
well,
and
is
make an
it
impact
5%? Then they can actually
5%,
an EGM, which is what
more
often than just the AGM. You can have then.
And
I think at that point they can then pose the question or pose the stage of saying that unfit for purpose on voting with confidence properly. And these people, obviously, we had that open letter where we all claimed to have a vote of no confidence in the board, but it was meaningless to the board because it didn't actually have any effect. But I believe if they get the 5%, then they can call that AGM for that reason. So if we can get there, then you very well might get that 5%, call it EGM because of no vote with no confidence, and then the other 95% will just saddle up with Desmond anyway.
Yeah.
But at least you've got to the point of trying to ask that question actively in a place, in a situation that can be asked. Whereas us guys here just now and in the stands, we can talk about it, but we can't ask the question really, not in a legal sense.
Well, there's no avenue for us to get into these meetings, and obviously the Celtic FC Limited are set up to primarily do that. But to answer your question, Gav, for me the end goal, some of this to me is meaningless if there's no end goal, or there's no resignations, or there's no one kind of falling on the sword, so to speak. I look around the world at these football clubs. I mean, you look at Tony Bloom, his involvement with Hearts, Brighton, USG, been pretty successful. You look at your man Foley, involved with Bournemouth, Hibs, and a few other Lorient in France as well, 3 other big clubs around the regions, and that's been primarily successful. Obviously, a lot of these owners now go down the multi-club route. I don't really look at football clubs anymore. I mean, look at Newcastle; they're owned by Saudi Arabians. They're not falling into disrepair. You look at Leeds, heavily backed by Red Bull and other the people who own Rangers as well. They're not falling into disrepair. I think sometimes we're stuck in a comfort situation where we're used to what we have.
Yeah.
We're really used to that. Yeah, we're really used to that comfort blanket, knowing that this board isn't risk adverse. We're not going to fall into millions and millions of pounds of debt. But then on the other hand, we want them to spend money and be more risky. But then, where's the middle ground there? So, it wouldn't really bother me in a sense if we got approached by, Qatarians or Saudi Arabian investors. Obviously, you have to do your checks and stuff, and you'd hope the checks are done properly. But these guys and these women are involved in high up level football. Every major club in the world at the minute is owned by someone from America, from Saudi Arabia, from Qatar, and look at PSG. They're owned by the Qatari state. And it doesn't necessarily mean these people are going to come in. I mean, we'll probably see it with Rangers at the minute. They're not going to act off on emotion. Do you know what I mean? They're going to be very stringent with their investments. They're going to not rush their decisions. They're going to make sure they have the right infrastructure in place, like McGinty was talking about, from recruitment right down to academy level. So it doesn't really, put the fear in me about what's coming next. But what I do know and do understand is Dermot Desmond in 2020 said he's never going to sell his shares. So there's the stumbling block. What would be the money that Dermot asked for? And I think it's quite ironic, by the way. I don't know if you've seen this, that Dermot Desmond's in a dispute with his golfing club because he's not happy the way the money's being used, and he's done an open letter. The irony is.
He's trying.
The irony isn't lost on him.
Was it 6.2 million?
6 million. 6 million or something.
It's like, really, you're chasing 6 million, yet you're happy for Celtic to spend, was it £12 million in corporation tax?
Corporation tax, yeah.
But he's chasing 6 million for the golf club. Come on, to fuck.
And then you look within Scottish football as well, Gav. I'll give it to you in a wee second. Sorry, mate. You look at Aberdeen, Dave Cormack, and he's backed by a ton of investors in Chicago and Atlanta over in America. As I said, Hibs are involved with Bill Foley or Todd Bowley, one of the two of them anyway. Hearts are involved with Tony Bloom. Looks quite successful at the minute. Dundee are owned by Americans. Dundee United are owned by Americans. So the outside investment is coming in regardless if we like it or not. Celtic aren't untouchable. In regards to this, if someone offers a big enough price, then we're on the market. Every club has a price. We've seen that with Manchester United, Jim Radcliffe. Chelsea's been bought over about 20 million times since Roman Abramovich. So all these things are up for sale if the price is right. But the end goal for me, Gav, to kind of bring it back to what you were talking about is, there has to be a complete start to finish again in the departments in terms of recruitment, scouting, the academy infrastructure, the first team squad, the first team coaching staff. The board claim to be world class at everything. They're the world class at talking shit. That's what they're world class in. Anything above that, they're pretty average at. But Gav, I'll throw that back to you. What would be your end goal in this situation? Would you be closed off the outside investment, so to speak?
No, I wouldn't be too stubborn in that regard, because there's been a lot of, in recent history, foreign investment who've come into British clubs, for example, and they've done really well. If you look at what happened with Leicester, they were taken over by a Thai family, and they were like a ball hair away from getting relegated under Nigel Pearson, and then they stay in, and then they get rid of him, bring in Ranieri, and they win the league, against all the odds. Obviously, they had some very, very good players there, but they were running the right way, and they had a period of sustained success, which maybe came to an end after they got rid of Brendan Rodgers, and probably the last really good manager that they had. But I think there's been plenty of examples of foreign investment in British clubs where it has worked out. I think what we're seeing with Hearts looks a breath of fresh air, even though we don't like Hearts as a club and their fans.
Yeah.
I think what they're experiencing right now, you can understand why they are very, very optimistic. That just sounds like positive change, and we want positive change. So I guess the utopian end goal for us would be probably fan ownership, wherever we're able to kind of control our own destiny in a democratic fashion, where we have elections and we're able to vote people out, vote people in, depending on their performance over a short period of time, like you see at Barcelona, and for example. So that would be great, but I think we're a million miles off that. So we've got a guy who don't know what he's going to do. He's going to stay on for another few years. Obviously, he's getting old. Will he hand it over to his son? Probably. That's the most likely outcome. What will his son do? Will his son be more bold, or will his son kind of view Celtic ownership as a ownership? But you know what I mean. View that as a plaything, a kind of hands-off approach. How will he view it? Will he be more hands-on? So I think if the kind of succession plan does happen, I want to be quietly optimistic that he might be different from his father in that regard. It's not going to be a carbon copy. It might be worse or it might be better, but time will tell. But they don't have to give up that anytime soon. But I guess if that wasn't to be the case, yeah, as McGinty kind of mentioned, if you've got a consortium, a sports consortium, who know what the game is, and if they were to come in and take over Celtic, and if they offered enough money to buy out people's shares, and they wanted to kind of conduct Celtic in the right manner, I guess the only kind of caveat to that is what would be their motivation, because you can't earn as much money with a Scottish club as what you can with an English club. So does it become a plaything? Does it become a toy? Does it become a thing where you brag about it to your friends that I own a football club, or is it actually a meaningful business operation that people genuinely want to do well? But again, the returns are limited because it's a football club and because you're based in Scotland. So there's always going to be a glass ceiling to an extent. So to an extent, we're fucked, but we'll see what happens.
I think when it comes to
good optimism, Gav.
You mentioned there, Gav, about obviously Ross. What's his motivation going to be? Inevitably, I think that's where the shares are going to go from Dermot. Is going to go to Ross's son. My hope would be that he doesn't treat it as a status thing that basically his dad's doing at the golf club, saying, "Oh yeah, okay." He doesn't own it, but his dad's using it as a status thing to say, "Look who I am. I've got a football club," sort of thing. I'd hope that his son doesn't do that, and he'd actually come in wanting to make Celtic a bigger, better thing than what his dad's managed to do. But it depends on how he views what his dad's done. If he views his dad as being a success, he's probably just going to continue as is. when it comes to a sporting corporation coming in of some kind, I think there's more money to be made at Celtic. Plenty of us have done the back of the fag paper mathematics of how much revenue we've got and how much revenue you could make. But you're looking at, I'm trying to keep this as brief as possible, you're looking at 124 million revenue in the last accounts. When we had Dialer, the worst we've done was I think 52 or 53 million, so we've more than doubled that at that point. I think when Rodgers first came in, his first full season of results financially was 103. So again, we've improved beyond that point to a point where obviously within reason of how numbers are reported, how we spend our money. I posed this question in the group chat the other week about how did we only have £100,000 more at bank when we brought in so much money in the Poon sale, from Bong sell-ons and the rest of it. And it's been explained to me in other sources and media points that it's how we're basically spending the money and how we're bringing it in. We're spending practically the full amount on the new players. So when we've signed Kaneki at 5.6 million, we've basically given Hammarby 5.6 million. But when Adam Ida's been signed for 7 million, we've probably accepted 2 up front and 5 staggered out. So although we look at 7 million for Adam Ida, it's actually only 2 million in the accounts. I know that's after the financial results were formed at the 30th of June, but I'm just meaning other players would follow the same. So it seemingly we're allowing the staggering of selling players, but we're paying more for it, which is a good thing because then we're not indebted to anybody. But if you were to take the fact that we paid £12 million in corporation tax, if we cut how much money we make in pure profit revenue over expenditure, it's more than that 12 million, because obviously that's just the tax side of it. How much it is, I'm not going to do the math of it. But that, to me, in theory at least, says that we should be able to spend, let's talk £30 million more than we actually did spend this summer and still have broken even without touching money at the bank. I think how much better our squad would be if we actually spent £30 million on 4, 5 or 6 different players. That kind of 5, 6, £7 million mark, whatever fees and wages and all the rest that might come out of that overall pot, whatever that be. But even have 4 players of that, what we would hope caliber of player would bring in, we'd be so much better off. That for me, you'd be doing better in the Champions League. We probably would have got past Karate. We'd do better in the Champions League than we did last year because everybody's getting improved upon. And that would mean that the money next year wouldn't be £124 million revenue. It could be £135 million revenue. It could be £140 million revenue. And although that's not a great sum of money when you look at EPL clubs, Gavin, or you look at Barcelona's money and stuff like that, that's still a healthy return on investment for a corporation to come in. And yes, they would love to make bigger money at the EPL and the big clubs, but even these corporations are snapping up and investing in lesser clubs who have lesser revenue than Celtic. If you look at the Man City situation, the City group, they've got hands in Girona. They're not making more money. I don't have the numbers to hand, of course, not, but I would imagine Girona are making or able to make more money than Celtic are able to make. I mean, we're talking, I reckon Celtic in the very near future, if you've done it properly, could be easily having revenue of 150 million with relative ease. I think that's a lot of money for most people to look at.
Your man, Kieran Maguire, that football expert guy that does the Swiss Ramble, he said in an article recently that out with the Scottish League, Celtic holding that £78 million in bank, there was only one other club in the EPL that had that cash reserve. So at a technicality, we had more money in the bank than 99% of the English Premier League. Not saying that obviously, that means that we're rich or anything, Gav, but it shows you that the cash reserves are there. It's also, see it as PSR, FFP balls. It's over a 3 to 4 year period. It's over a 3 to 4 year period that these things have to go on for. So we're safe in that aspect of things. Your man Simon Jordan went in depth on that on TalkSport, and he talked about that recently as well. So all these excuses about not spending money or the market not being right doesn't wash no more. You know what I mean? It's one of these things, like you're seeing record turnovers, and what are we getting in return?
I agree. I totally agree.
So I just can't for you because I've just googled on the side. Talk's sake, Girona. Sorry. The two sporting groups of City Group and Red Bull. So Girona's revenue in 23-24, quick Google, was €89 million. We're at 124.
Can I just ask, is that so? Girona, they were in the Champions League in the past couple of years, weren't they? So are those figures reflective of their Champions League income?
Quick Google, don't know. 23-24, don't know if that will. I presume that's probably not because I think they were in the Champions League 23-24 2 years ago. So I presume it's not. However, you add another 30-40 million on top of that for being in the Champions League. That's about where we are at. Another club, just for very, very quickness, Red Bull Salzburg. Not going to look at the German team, obviously, but their revenue was €183 million in 23-24, which works out at 159 million, 160 million pound. Again, I don't think we're a million miles away from the next couple of years, especially if you invested properly to be competitive in the Champions League with the money that you can generate just by getting to the knockout stages. I don't think we're a million miles away from being able to get that sort of level of revenue. And that's you looking at a Salzburg. That's where we should be at, realistically. And I think that's a good investment for one of these corporations to look at.
I see the last point that I just want to make about like the non-football side of Celtic is whenever we're talking about like succession plans or ownership plans. I think that whoever inherits Celtic or buys becomes the next largest shareholder. I think that the elephant in the room is that Celtic Park is going to be the next Old Trafford. And what I'm talking about is a leaky stadium, an old stadium which at one point was one of the best stadiums in the UK. And probably sooner than what we think, it's going to be a liability in a sense. And the more that we delay this, it's going to loom larger as a problem to whoever becomes the key decision maker at Celtic. And this is going to have to be addressed. And at the moment, we're kicking it down the can. So at the moment, Dermot Desmond, absolutely, he's not going to touch that hot potato. He's going to leave it for the next person to take over Celtic, whether it be his son. That's going to be his problem. And he'll probably advise him on what to do. Or it will be the problem of if somebody was to kind of buy them out. But that's going to be a massive problem, and that might deter buyers. So I just want to say that our stadium was built in the 90s, but parts of it, the South Stand, has got foundations from like the 70s.
It's 100 years. Yeah.
So it's quite a big problem, and we, in our position of strength right now, we have no appetite to address it. We're kicking the can down the road, and that's going to deter buyers.
So we said at the very start of this podcast as well, and I know we go on mad tangents. We're an hour into this and we've not even talked about actual football yet. But when I said earlier, and Stephen agreed, and I think most fans will agree as well, when we say it's not just about the transfer window of this year, and I said it's 20 years of this, it's not just 20 years of transfer windows, it's 20 years of transfer windows. It's 18, 19 years of Lennoxtown producing almost the square root of fuck all in regards to youth talent coming through. Whether or not the talent is good enough, we're not doing anything to better it. It's 20 years of neglect of the stadium, 30 years of neglect of the stadium, because 31 years ago, that main stand was put up, 30 years ago since we completed the stadium off. At that time, as you said, Gavin, it was the 70s that, the front end of the South Stand got a spruce of paint. That was only 20 years before the rest of the stadium got built in the 90s. We're now 30 years on since then. But the structure and the foundation, I believe, of the main stand is touching on 100 years at this point. It's about 70 years old when the 90s were happening in the stadium. As you say, we are very much at the point where, yes, Celtic Park was fantastic when it was built in its modern age in the 90s. It was fantastic for years after that, but it's had nothing done to it apart from putting up, poster banners to cover up the corrosion and the stankiness of the metalwork. We've done nothing to really fix that stadium up, to spruce it up, to modernise it in any meaningful way. It's been in situ for 30 years with very little done to it. It is desperate, and that is another thing that fans are noticing over the last couple of years and want things to change by. Barrowfields is a great thing that it's just now opened up, obviously, and there's been delays there. The fruit of the labours would be great to see what happens with that, but it seems very little over the grand scheme of 25 years now, 30 years. So more has to happen a lot quicker.
Can I help Stephen out? Stephen, obviously, you've been kind enough to host for tonight. For the last couple of podcasts, I have done a little segment for Build the Perfect Celt. So I thought I might just chuck that in, and because both you guys are on, I thought I might get both of your kind of answers to the perfect Celt, and then we can move off after that into whatever trajectory you want to take the podcast for tonight. Is that all right?
That's fine, mate. You go ahead. Yeah.
So it's just like kind of like build the perfect Celt. I like it when they do those kind of things on like YouTube for build the perfect boxer, and they do like ring IQ, your hook, your jab, chin, that sort of thing. I love that sort of thing. So we'll do it for the perfect Celt, and I'm going to ask if you can choose people who have been Celtic players during your lifetime anyway. So start off with Stephen, and I'll get to your answer for each one. And I've been taking a note. I don't know why I write these down, but I just do. I like to be organised. I don't know why. It's not as if I'm going to need it in future events. But anyway, Stephen, we're going to start off. Build the perfect Celt, and this is probably one that stumps everybody. But right-footed player.
Oh, right-footed player. Can it be both-footed?
Well, if you want, because
did it have to be that? Right, okay. Anthony Stokes.
Stokes right-footed. Okay. Up the Irish. Anthony.
So I obviously heard when you did this with Jed, I think it was, and he picked a player to cover almost 5 different answers to this question, which is quite understandable. But I'm going to try and go through this, not picking the same player twice. So I'm going to be a little bit planning methodical with it. So with right-footedness, I'm thinking, what wonders can happen with a right foot. There's a few names. I know, but I need to eke this out. We're only at an hour, Gavin. We need to get to 3.
Aye, dead on.
I think this is where Stephen was going to go when he says, "Can it be 2-footed?" and all the rest of it. But I'm going to go.
You know who he's talking about.
Lubo Moravchik.
Lubo. Okay, Lubo. There we go. Right, Stephen, left-footed player.
Nakamura.
McGinty.
I'll keep it short. Nakamura. That's why I picked the blonde right. I made that spiel.
Stephen, football IQ.
Oh, Henrik Larsson.
Henrik. I think you never saw a better football IQ whenever Henrik came on for Barca against Arsenal on that famous night. He just knew what to do. He didn't have the main character syndrome. He just knew what to do. McGinty, who would you go for football IQ?
I'm going to say something different, just to be different, although I probably do agree with Stephen, but I'm going to pick Tom Rogic for IQ.
Rogic.
Oh, that's a great shout. That's a great shout. What a player.
Stephen, speed.
I'll give you the reason why, first of all, because watching this player when I was younger was just incredible with my granddad. My first memories of the Celtic team, obviously being O'Neill, his first season onwards, was a bargain signing, I think, from Hibs, I believe it was. Didier Agat has to be for speed.
Yeah, I think Hibs got him from Wraith Rovers, unless I'm mistaken. But Agat, that's the second person who's went for Agat. I think young James went for Agat. McGinty, who would you go for?
Is dribbling a question at some point as well? Is that a separate one?
Yes. Okay. Keep your options open, McGinty.
Thank you. That's what I'm planning. I was going to say Bobby Petter at first, but I'm going to go for Maeda for speed.
Maeda, okay. Yeah. Do you remember Agat whenever he first signed for us? Everybody was calling him Agatha. Do you remember that agate thing? And then we're still no, it's a gat. It's a gat. Right, okay. Back to Stephen. Technical ability.
Technical ability. Lubo Murazovic.
Lubo. Back to Lubo. Okay, and McGinty?
Again, I'm trying not to do two players that's in my list, so I'm going to go with... I'll go modern, I'll go Matt O'Reilly. I don't think he's the best, but I'm going to go with him for my perfect players now.
I think Aaron Moy had a very good technical ability.
He was in my head there. He was in my head.
Stephen, passing.
Fuck, that's a good one.
See, whenever I hear passing, I just think of Xavi Alonso. My mind just goes straight to that player. I'm like, oh, well, he doesn't play for Celtic, so.
Fuck, that's a tough one. Obviously, I know Smell the Gloves on about the Maestro and stuff. I never really seen him play, obviously, in my lifetime. So, you're always thinking centre mid, aren't you? You're always in that position in your mind when you're thinking about passers. I'll go Stilian Petrov.
Petrov, aye, very good player. McGinty.
I really want to be funny and silly and say Carter Vickers or Casper Schmeichel because they like to pass the ball between each other so much. But I'm being serious. I'll go with a guy that we used to always say could hit a 50 pence piece from about 50 yards away, and Joe Ledley.
Oh, did people say that about him?
Oh, I did.
I never heard that. Never once heard that.
I think that was actually probably said more for Paul McStay, to be fair, and then it was incorporated for Joe Ledley at some points in time. But Joe Ledley's left foot from a long distance range pass was absolutely phenomenal.
Fair dues. And he had a fantastic beard as well. I've thought of a new attribute, so I'm just going to keep adding to this, and we'll be done in about 2 hours. Stephen, hold up play.
Fuck's sake. First one come to my mind there, John Hartson.
Awesome. McGinty?
I've got 3. Hartson was one, Sutton was another one, and they should be the true answer, but I'm going to change it up and go Jan Vennegoor of Hesselink. Just to make you type that out.
I was hoping, I'm just that JVH. I'm no fucking daft. I was hoping somebody would go for Big Pierre. Stephen, back to yourself. Dribbling
ability. I loved Aidan McGeady, right?
But
absolutely adored him as McGeady spin. He was the one player as a kid that always excited me, and I couldn't wait to watch him play. But another fella pips into the post. Maybe not the most flashy individual player in terms of, be able to do step overs or that, but deceivingly an unbelievable player. And if he had kept fit and could do it 90 minutes, he would have been, I think, world class. And it has to be Patrick McCourt.
Oh, very good answer. Aye. Okay, McGinty.
I see Celt88 has put Jota there, and I think that's a fantastic answer too. And I was thinking along those lines, same as Stephen, thinking along the lines of McGeady as well. But I'm going to take one that's a guy who split opinions so much in his time at Celtic, but I think he could arguably be in for speed as well. Arguably, but not realistically. But I'm going to go for dribbling Georgios Samaras.
Oh, fuck. Okay.
I'm always remembering that goal against Kilmarnock in his early days where he ran down, I think it was the right side, cut in, dribbling it, and I think he took the shot on his left foot, I think it was.
An even better goal than that was, do you mind, away from home when he scored that crucial goal in Europe, where it was like a lofted ball, he brought it down, took it past 2 players, just kind of ran into the box and put it by the keeper. I don't know if it was in like Russia or like an Eastern European country. It was a really, really important goal for us. Okay, so Samaras. Right, Stephen, shooting.
Oof.
Is shooting the same as finishing in this regards?
Yeah. See, when I think
two players came to my mind straight away: Lee Griffiths and Gary Hooper.
Good options.
Both phenomenal strikes of the ball, and obviously Lee Griffiths' time at Celtic ended probably on a sour note. It did, let's be fair, but great strike of the ball. Who else could you throw in? Obviously, we've said other players. Moussa Dembele wasn't really, I don't think, a powerful shot. He was more cultured and finessed. Edward pretty much the same. You know what? I'm going to go Lee Griffiths.
I totally agree. See, when I think of like a finisher, a shooter, I think of people like Robbie Fowler, who he didn't just aim for like on target. He would aim for like inside the post, that sort of thing where the keeper just cannot get to it. That's when I think of like a proper finisher. And people like Hooper and Griffiths are right up there. Probably even more so than Dembele or Edouard. And again, who would you go for?
Did I put Larson as an answer yet?
No.
So if I had, I was going to go with James Forrest for exactly the reason you said there. That when he cuts in from the right-hand side, you can see in that step, the second step, because he's looking for that space to get that finish in. He's very precise with how he shoots with that ball when he's on the edge of the box. But for the sheer fact that I've not put Larson in yet, and he's obviously one of our best goal scorers of all time, I'm going to put Larson for this one.
Mm-hmm. I wish if James Forrest was as good at finishing as what you said, I wish he would bring his shooting boots to Irish. that'd be really, really nice. Stephen, tackling.
Okay. I have this Bobo Balde.
Balde, that's the second one. I think Little James went for Balde as well. McGinty?
Yeah, it's going to be one of those three from that era. But I want to just make a shout out for the best tackle. Not the best tackler overall, but the best tackle, Simunovic on Kenny Miller. If we had to pick just one tackle, that's the one. But for my lifetime, I'm not going to pick Baldy. I'm going to go with big use for Harn.
Oh, Harn. Okay.
See another player I really liked? Stanislas Varga.
Varga was great.
I thought he was a good player.
Mark Creeper was good.
I thought McNamara was a very good tackler, and he also had a bit of bite to his tackle as well. He wouldn't take prisoners, and he wasn't scared to let people who were bigger than him, which were probably most people. Stephen, heading, who would you go for?
Defensive headers or attacking headers, or is it just anything?
If you want to go for Liam Scales, I don't mind.
Heading ability.
And that's both in either box.
Chris Sutton.
Brilliant answer. McGinty?
Again, I've already said Larson, so I can't see him because his heading ability for goals was absolutely sublime for such a small guy. This is going to be controversial. This is not going to be right at all, but I'm trying to measure both defensively and attacking. I'm going to go with, I hate myself already, I'm going to go with Starfelt. He scored some good defensive, he scored some good headed goals, and I think defensively quite sound there as well.
I'll take Starfelt.
Not the greatest answer, but I'm going to go with it.
Never mind that, I'd take Starfelt right now.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Aggression, Stephen.
Scott Brown.
McGinty.
How many's left?
15.
However many he has. I
like it. That's why I'm asking.
I want to try and not pick the same one as Stephen as well, but it is Scott Brown.
Scott Brown, okay. For me, I don't think you can get any more aggressive than Bobo Balde. I don't think he was necessarily the best tackler in the world, but aggression. He was like the most aggressive,
Depends how you mean by aggression. Tommy Gravison should be in the chat of just pure aggression, but not actually very good at doing something with it.
I think this might be aimed towards you, McGinty. I don't know if you were thinking about Paul Elliott there.
No, he is before my time. For the real answer to that, he's before my time in that.
Yeah,
sense.
I've been told by people that Paul Elliott was better than Cameron Carter Vickers, and it's just before my time. I just wish I got to see the guy play. And I think he probably played for Celtic in the wrong era as well. I don't think with the cultural situation at the time that he was given.
This is a good shout, Gal, for aggression too. Rubber duck there, Graverson.
It's like I didn't see Tommy Gravison 5 minutes ago.
Aye, well, Gravison for aggression.
Oh, yeah. Did you say that? Did you?
I said,
oh, fuck me,
I said he was one.
Mango.
Okay, a different type of attribute. Team player. Who would
Charlie Mulgrew.
Mulgrew. Who would sacrifice himself for the team? Mulgrew. McGinty.
Tierney.
Yeah. Right, okay, we've got 3 more. We get 3 more, and then we can move on to the next topic. Set pieces, probably an easy one.
No,
set pieces in terms of delivery.
Yeah, not throw-ins. Like free kicks.
I've said Nakamura, said Griffiths.
You can go for them again if you want.
It's just me that's not picking 2 of the same.
I'm gonna go get random here. It's gonna be random. Virgil van Dijk.
Oh, fuck you! I was going to say that as well for that same reason. Do you remember his free kick goal with his left foot in the run up? Yeah.
The guy who scored one free kick for Celtic.
It was fantastic.
It was brilliant.
McGinty.
No, I'm going because obviously I've said various players already. I can't believe we've actually not put Virgil van Dijk in any of the tackling stuff. Well, Thompson's an option, but I've not said Griffiths yet, so I'm going to say Griffiths.
Ah, you dick. Good shout.
Does anybody in the comments remember a young player who came through at the time of Martin O'Neill, a left back, ginger boy? He only played for Celtic for a little bit. By the way, John Collins, phenomenal. But does anybody remember Stephen Craney, the fullback?
Oh, yeah. Craney, yes, Craney, yeah.
Aye, he only played for Celtic for a little bit, but he had a very good free kick on him. Anyway,
as well, yeah.
Power. Who do we go for power, Stephen?
Are we on about the physical power, strength?
The power of love.
Fuck, haven't possessed that in quite a while, Gav. Let me see. I'm going to throw a few out there before I give my answer, but remember Big Mastorovic? I thought he was a tank. Big Johan was built like a tank.
Are we going power in the sense of strength, or are we going for power like a powerful shot?
No, power, strength.
Right, cool. Yeah.
I had the one that stands out for me just in my mind already is Victor Wanyama. He's animal.
Again, trying to pick different players. I'll go with Bobo Baldy for that one.
Did you not say him for something?
Yeah, is Wanyama still at Dunfermline?
I believe. Was he just at end of last season? Did he not sign on?
He's left him. He didn't re-sign. No. As far as I know. Check that McGinty online, but as far as I know, I don't think he re-signed.
Right. And final one.
Leadership. Fuck's sake. I said fucking Brownie.
Again, you can see it again. It's just me doing that.
Callum McGregor.
Cal Mack. Because we've had Scott Brown from Little James, Scott Brown from Anthony, and now we've got Cal Mack, which is, good option, good call. McGinty.
Paul Lambert.
Yeah, that's the one.
And that concludes it. It's an ever-growing list. I keep adding on little things, Next, I'm going to do like hairstyle or something like that. I'll just throw in random things.
See, by the time you get to the end of it, you can ask us all again because it's going to be like double the amount of questions that none of us have answered.
I like that, Gav. I like that wee segment. They're good to break up the boardroom stuff, but we are 1 hour 19 minutes in, and we're finally going to get on to some football, McGinty. as I said, Gav segued quite nicely into this. A wee bit more positivity. We're seeing Celtic travel out for the first Europa League game to Belgrade. Quite a notorious ground. Obviously, the tunnel being 4 miles away from the actual pitch, and going underneath the altars and that. So it was quite an experience. I remember seeing Arsenal play there a few years ago, and the atmosphere was a bit more intense, let's say, because it was in the Champions League and it just sounded incredible. But that's not to say it wasn't still intense on Thursday evening or Wednesday evening when Celtic travelled over. Europa League, we're in it now. We have to support the team. We'll have to do as well as we can in it. I thought it was quite interesting though. Post match that Rodgers just said, well, he was happy enough, but he said this is like where we are now as a team. It's just him accepting that we've maybe dropped down a level or two, and he's just come to the realization of that. That was a good hard fought point away from home. What did you make of the game? Obviously, Colby Donovan retained his position at right back. Dyson Mieta started from the middle. What did you make of the first half, let's say, before obviously the changes and all took place?
Because you set me up there, I'm going to bring you back one step before I talk about the game again. I think it's a crying shame that Rodgers has to come out and basically say that. And it's what we all believe and understand and think anyway, that this has become our level. And I mean no disrespect to Red Star, none at all. They're historically a great club as well. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't too long ago we were brushing shoulders with your Milans and your Juventuses being able to take the game to them. And of course I'm going back 20 years, but it seems like almost every 5 years we just drop down another level. And now we're at the stage where the manager, and I get why he's saying it because the same way that he gets to the end of the transfer window, I work with what I've got now. This is what I need to deal with. And he's accepting, and it's his way of saying, look, this is where we're at. This is a caliber of opponent we're at. A draw away to Red Star, that's our level now. When realistically, and I mean zero disrespect to Red Star Belgrade, they should be better than they are as well. Both clubs should be in the Champions League. We shouldn't be going to Red Star Belgrade and thinking a draw is good enough. We should be going there confidently winning. And disappointed at a draw, but happy to take it at the same time. Not draw's a good result. For the game itself, I don't know how in depth we're going to go. So if I start just being a bit too broad, pull me in if you want, guys. I think it was a fair game. I think when we play in Europe, and again with Partick Thistle against weaker oppositions, we get to impose a little bit more. We get a little bit more space on the ball. So the sideways passing isn't as predominant and noticeable, but it's still there. I think attacking-wise, we're still lacking in some ways. We play down the left far too much. As great as Taneki is, and as much as I've got a lot of hope and excitement about him being on the left wing, I fear that we end up just playing all our game down the left side, and we're just all that's going to happen is he's going to get doubled or tripled marked, and teams are going to quickly figure out how to stop him, and then we're going to be back to square one of what the fuck do we do, because as Rodgers admits, we don't have a right wing option that he's satisfied with. But I think some players stood out, some players done well. Tanetki definitely looked great. Iniacho, when he came on, looked really good. Rodgers made points about Maeda in his press conference today, which I think were quite fair and justifiable, about not that his head's turned, but obviously it plays on him, the fact that he wanted away and didn't get the move. Maeda's had some sort of ankle knock injury as well. But Iniacho comes on and he does so well that I truly believe he deserves to start tomorrow. Donovan, he has his mistakes and his flaws, like any youngster coming in. We can't expect him to always have a great game. At some point, he's going to cost us a goal, more than likely. At some point, he's going to lose his man too much. At some point, we're going to call for him to be hooked at halftime. But I think the start that Donovan's made this season, and even his game the other night, I think he's played well. I think he's shown well. He looks like he wants to be on the ball. He looks like he wants to learn and willing to make the mistakes to put himself in a position to understand how to do it. Outside of those kind of names, the rest of the team was more just the same as every other game this season. The midfield is still disjointed It's lacking.
I'll be back in a few minutes, guys. Okay.
No worries.
Sorry.
Defensively, fairly sound. We've always been fairly sound, but obviously when we play the ball around their back, Stephen, so much, we invite pressure. And when you're playing against European teams, that pressure is going to come more regular than when you're playing against Partick Thistle, obviously. So yeah, as much as the game was a little bit more exciting midweek, I didn't see enough from a team collective to think that we've started to turn the corners, sort of thing, if that makes sense. I'm excited by the players that I've mentioned, obviously, in Taneki, Iacho, and Donovan. But I'm also still seeing the issues. There's no right wing. The midfield trio is just completely out of sync with each other. It's not balanced in any sort of way. All six midfielders that we've got, I think all six of them are very good players at various levels. Of being good squad players to being good first team players, but we don't have a balance within the trio that's on the park that the three of them know what the other one's doing. So, like, there's nobody sitting actual deep being a holding midfielder. Yes,
we spoke about that.
Yeah, we're playing Callum McGregor as a 6, but he's not a 6. But then we're playing theoretically to me, 2 10s without being out and out supportive secondary strikers like Tom Rogic could be, but we're playing two players who want to be 10s as 8s, and we're playing an actual 8 as a 6. They're all either the same player trying to do the same job, or they want to be doing the job that the other players do. Nobody's doing the actual job that they're actually meant to do, because they're not naturally meant to be there. It's James who always says it, and I do agree. We need an out-and-out big bastard, a Wanyama type per se, but we also now need an out-and-out Tom Rogic, Matt O'Reilly. Everybody, and I believe everybody's true when they say that, you expect Benjamin Negron to be that kind of link between the midfield and the attack, the support to the attack. But he's been asked to play an 8 next to Hatate, who's been asked to play an 8 next to McGregor, who is an 8, but he's asked to play a 6. It's just not working for me, Stephen.
I think one of the things that I noticed in the first half, and I think Ross and I think Gillian's mentioned it as well in the comments, is our inability to defend our box from set pieces or even free kicks or set piece situations in general. It seems to be an everlasting issue that has always surrounded Celtic ever since I started supporting them. Way back in obviously early 2000s and that, but it's more prevalent now because the quality of player that from we had then has obviously went down. I think one of the major concerns, now we spoke about this after the match on our group chat, is the inability to change in Europe. Rodgers, to me, used to favour the 4-2-3-1 formation when he was at Celtic the first time around. And even then, I don't think he had an out-and-out 6, but what he did have was Scott Brown, who was industrious. You either have beside him Armstrong or Oliver Neesham at parts, and then Kalmack, which is usually the one playing further forward, or you have Tom Rodgers coming in. You just had the one up there and the 2 sitting. And I said this to you in the group chat as well. It doesn't matter, in my opinion, if you have 2 midfielders and you tell them, look, sit in front of the back 4, patrol it, you should be able to do that job at a competent level, even though that's not your favourite thing to do. Like an Arnie Engels type player, a Cal McGregor beside each other, I think should work perfectly well. One of the major concerns for me was in the Red Star game was the fact that all Red Star had to do was play a simple straight ball for our midfield, and it was attack versus defence, and our midfield were nowhere to be seen. They were all over the pitch, and as you said, there was no shape and there was nothing. There was no cohesion there as a unit. We're used to seeing in previous years you would have Rio, Kalmack on the same level, same wavelength. It doesn't seem like that anymore. I think Negron, he showed it in fits and starts, but to me, he's too slow. I think he slows the game down enough that there was a point where he broke. I think it was 4-on-3 at one point, and all he had to do was release the ball to the left-hand side, but the player caught up with him and took the ball off him. It's simple things like this in transition. We need to move the ball quicker. We need to, like you say, develop a way of playing that's more effective and sustainable at this level. And albeit we should be Champions League in the Champions League, but we're not, and this is where we are at the moment. And I just think that the midfield is a big issue. I don't know. Look, I don't know where my head's at on the talk about Cal McGregor being done. I don't think he's done. I think what's around him isn't helping him. I think if he had that players always beside him, like we talked about the two patrolling and having 110 and having the wingers, out wide, then maybe if Rodgers referred back to type when he was first here, it might work. But just at the minute, McGinty, like I know we're going to come on to the second half and stuff, but just at the minute, it just seems like to me that there's no solution to the midfield problem.
I posed this to you in the group chat, and I'll put it here for the podcast sake as well. And I get what you're saying when I posed this, that it might not solve it, but I think if we did go back to that 4-2-3-1 or even a 4-4-2, to go to two midfielders rather than three, but ask the two midfielders to do the actual job that a duo would need to do in that situation, in that formation, rather than asking three players to do jobs that they're not actually. So you mentioned Scott Brown being that defensive midfielder at times. He never was until we pushed him back there. Obviously his age and his legs meant he goes back, the Pirlo situation, gradually just come further deeper in the pitch.
Yeah.
Scott Brown was really good at that. I think his aggression helps him do that. McGregor doesn't have the same aggression, so I think he gets found out doing the job that Scott Brown used to do, although not natural at it. Scott Brown made up for it in other aspects. We're asking Callum McGregor to do that same role as Scott Brown, but he's not got the same attributes to cover the shortcomings that he's actually not that player, if that makes some sense. But if we went to a 4-4-2 or 4-2-3-1, where Callum McGregor sits at that kind of left-sided midfielder, he's not now asked to be a sixth defensive midfielder. He's asked to play a different role, and I think you see something better out of him. Similarly, could go for a Hatate if we put a Hatate in the 10 role in a 4-2-3-1. A lot of fans get really frustrated at Hatate for his passing, because a lot of times he hits a forward pass or a pass going out to the wings, and it doesn't hit his man for various reasons. I think that's because he's trying to do something that is better if he was a number 10, as much as it's not quite the same as having a Tom Roderick there. But if he's in the number 10 position in a 4-2-3-1, he's playing those luxury passes that he can get away with and not pulling off, because what he's trying to do is a little bit further up the park. And when he's got the ball a little bit further up the park, the rest of the team should be in a position to be breaking into those spaces in the channels, breaking the line, passes going in. Whereas just now he's trying to play those luxury passes from, 20 yards inside our own half rather than 20 yards in their half. And my example of this recently is the goal for Tenetki. That pass that he did, where he's going straight down the middle of the pitch, but it suddenly starts covering around and Tenetki collects it on the left wing, was a sensational pass. And Hatate tries that sort of pass, or glorious luxury passes to those effects, all the fucking time, but they don't come off because of various situations about how the midfield's made up. That it gets really frustrating for fans, and I appreciate that. Whereas I think if you had a 4-2-3-1 and you played Hatate for the forward, we can use the luxury kind of side of it. McGregor on the left side, and then maybe Bernardo and Engels on Nygren on the right side of the midfield, and ask them to be the 8, Hatate to be the 10, and then McGregor can be, okay, I've just said not to be the 6, definitely not to be the 6, but he can be a bit more fluid and going, box to box more than just sitting deep and playing passes with Carl Vickers.
Yeah, I think as well, like the disjointed nature of the team from the midfield to attack is apparent. Obviously Tenetki settling in, and I didn't think he was great against Red Star, I have to admit. And then Yang it's just Yang. He's just, there's no other way to describe him. And obviously we have the situation with Dyson as well, McGinty. What did you make of him being took off at halftime? And I know Rodgers came out after the match and said that, I think Rodgers is being firm with him. I've noticed this. He's saying he's not great, but he's also caveating that with the fact that he didn't get his move and that he was promised in the summertime, which obviously can have a bad effect on players. We've seen this before during the COVID season. But to take Maeda off at halftime, I thought was a massive call. In my opinion, I was looking at maybe more taking off Yang, putting Maeda to the right, and then putting Iheanacho for the middle. But obviously Rodgers is the manager. He's paid to make these massive calls, and it paid off in the end. But just to do that, I think really sends a message to the team that he's not going to accept mediocrity or people being off form. because Dyson was probably our best performer last season, and he's not getting away with subpar performances anymore.
So we did similar earlier in the season. Remember, Adam Ida, we hooked him at halftime for his performance just being absolutely below par. I don't think Dyson Maeda at midweek was to that level, and maybe there was a niggling ankle thing going on. Maybe he alluded to that today in his presser. But I'm with you. It sends that message. I'm not going to accept piss poor performances. Now, there's probably good reasons why Maeda's head's not in the game. Again, Rogers alluded to a lot of it today. He had questions on it. He spent a bit of time talking about Maeda. He expects him to overcome mentally, get the head in the game again. And obviously, he's aware that form can dip, and he's aware of a potential ankle knock that he's got going on as well. So all these can play a part. Did he do the right thing to hook him at halftime? Probably. It's maybe it's maybe the wee mental kick up the arse that Dyson needs, who has given so much for the club. He does run his arse off every game, and for some of these shortcomings that I've happily spoken about on the podcast for a couple of years, regards to he fucking works his arse off, and he deserves a lot of respect for it. But if the manager's seen it, because we're all seeing it as well, that he's not doing something enough, and he's not, whatever he's not doing is affecting the team, then he's quite right to hook him at halftime. Maybe that's a wee bit of the arse that might just trigger Maeda to think professionalism, because that's something we've always talked about Maeda as well.
I want to bring a comment. I want to bring a comment, McGinty, to you as well. Sorry to cut you up, but it's kind of feeding into what you're saying there. You can obviously follow on. Rubber Duck comes in. Do you think having a real 9 will link the play better? Looks that way already. Maeda should be a super sub now. Are you along that thinking?
Possible. I mean, obviously, his pace and his work rate down the left wing is, for a number of years, has been fantastic. Technically, not great when it comes to the kind of technical side of being further forward on the left wing. Like, his crossing has been absolutely horrendous for the last part of his Celtic career. I do believe under Rodgers it's gotten better, partly because he's not trying to cross the ball from 30 yards deep into the fucking back of the rosette. He's keeping his crosses low. He's playing the ball inside a bit better. He's making up for his shortcomings in that sense. So I think that's really good. But I do agree with Rubber Ducky. We're probably suffering from that number 9 that we don't have. Adam Ida was not going to be it. We've all spoke at length about this as well. Is Iheanacho going to be that guy? Time will tell. So far, at least starts in his career, he's looked better than we initially expected when it broke. And maybe that does help. I mean, maybe it even helps Maeda being on the left, Iheanacho up front, Tanecki on the right. Maybe that's something that could work for us.
Gav, you've joined us as we're moving on to the second half here, obviously, to talk about Iheanacho's impact on the team. And I'll come straight to you with a goal. Obviously, Negrin played a huge part in it by dribbling into space, and he actually looked like he can move instead of being stuck in the mud. Did a wee step over and played a nice ball into Iheanacho's path. And one thing I want to note, maybe a wee bit of naive thinking of me here, but when obviously watching Champions League growing up and watching Celtic play against top caliber opposition in Europe, right? The opposition players always had this knack of, when they get into our box, time in my head stood still. These operators knew how to manipulate the ball, slow down while still looking to make the quick move. I thought what Iheanacho done killed the pass, and time stood still. I hope you get what I mean, where it looked like he just had complete control of the situation. He killed it with his left foot. One look up, keeper's run out to him, and he had the composure to lift it over the keeper and put it in the back of the net. And look, we spoke about Iheanacho at the very top of the podcast in terms of impact, and can he be considered a good signing going forward? It may be a good signing out of spite, because this is probably not the solution the recruitment team nor Rogers wanted, but he's here now. And I hope you get what I mean, because in my mind, I do get what I mean when I say about players being able to kind of stop time and manipulate a situation to go in favour of them. There were so many times we've played against the likes of AC Milan, Man United, Barcelona, where the players get in the box, our players are running like headless chickens trying to close someone down, but one of their players stops and just picks a pass or just picks his effort into the bottom corner or top corner, whatever it may be at that time. I thought Iheanacho done it fantastically well, took his goal well, and straight away you felt the impact of him. Just having a focal point up front that we could hit and we could play off. And unfortunately, Dyson didn't live up to that in the first half, but we'll have to give Iheanacho credit here. Gav, I thought he did fantastically well for the goal.
Yeah, he looked as if he knew what he was doing up front. Let's say that. Everybody's kind of said the way that a lot of slander here as to what I was doing there. Well, it certainly wasn't a PR, put it that way. But the way that he killed the ball with his first touch, it looked very impressive that he did that. I don't think we've had someone perform that kind of act in the box for quite a while. Saying that, Kyogo was a very, very good centre forward as well. But Iheanacho, he once upon a time was a very, very good striker. Obviously Guardiola signed him, and Leicester spent 25 million on him. So the guy's only 28, and there was obviously a lot of doubt about him whenever he signed for Celtic, given things haven't worked out for him in Spain or on his loan spell at Middlesbrough. But I think the most important thing is that if the guy has still got the hunger, then that will benefit Celtic. McGinty spoke about it. We don't know how long we're going to have Iheanacho for. Obviously, he's got a fairly short-term contract. I don't know if it's 1 year with a second-year option. I don't know what it is, but I'm not too bothered about that. I'm just bothered about the short term, and he's brought in to do a job for Celtic. It looks like he's got the tools to do it. So if he's got the hunger, and if we keep building up his fitness in terms of his pressing and things like that, and we discover what his true speed is like, then I think it's going to benefit Celtic. Another good thing is that he seems very very, very assured. I don't know what's going on here. I'll live from it. I hate that format. Give me.
What happened there?
Oh, fucking hell, man. Guys, stop pressing.
Leave it. I've got it.
Amateurs. Amateurs. No, I think he's a very experienced striker, and I think we really, really need that, given what we've lost, the departures in the squad. So if we've got someone like Iheanacho who can come in, and he's still got the hunger, as I said, and if you give him the ball, he might be able to do impressive things. Even just like that wee pass that he made to Netke at Mary Hill, whenever he set up the goal for him to Netke against Partick Thistle. Just that wee kind of dinked pass, where he knew exactly what he was doing. He didn't overhit it. I just think that's the sort of thing that Adam Ida couldn't perform. And I'm not trying to bash Adam Ida. I'm just saying that.
No, I'm okay with that.
None of us are fans of Adam Ida, and it's very, very easy to to criticise the guy. But this is something that probably comes natural to Kelechi Iheanacho, where it didn't come natural to people like Adam Ida. So, look, we're going to find out more about Kelechi as the season goes on. But right now, he's had a really good assist, and he's had a really good goal in Europe. So more of it. But Stephen, I totally get what you mean about time slowing down whenever you're playing against proper good strikers and they've got the movement. They know exactly what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need to overexert themselves. They're able to just manipulate the ball, and they've got good balance, and they know where the goal is, and they've got a calm head. Kelechi showed all of that, and I want to see more of it, and I want to see him bag a few goals against Rangers. I think we deserve that. That's really what we want to see, and hopefully his presence will galvanise the people around him, because what I'm not a fan of is as soon as Tenetke comes in, we just give the ball to Tenetke, and that's symptomatic of a team who've ran out of ideas, and we've been doing this for years, but now we're so tired of going back to the well that we're unable to do it, and now we need this one new guy who's shown a little bit of spirit, a little bit of talent, and we're going to utilise your talent so much, and we're so heavily left-sided right now as well. So we're going to become very, very predictable. Yep. So at the same time, although I love Tenetkin, and I'm kind of going off at a tangent, other people should be taking, their fair share of the burden and Kelechi, thankfully, is standing up to the challenge so far. So more of the same. I want to see more of that.
I would like to make some comparisons. So there was another striker
With
that
who?
Celtic signed in his late 20s who was out of favour at previous clubs. Okay, Ian Atchell was 28, Larson was 27 when he came to Celtic, and had 7 great years at Celtic.
Not too early to make that comparison again.
I'm not making that.
On.
I'm not making that actual comparison. Don't worry. Ian Atchell's 29 in a week's time. What I only really being genuine. I'm not actually making that comparison, but being genuine. Gavin mentioned something there about being 28. He's not as old as you think he is. People might think 30, 31, 32. Sorry, he's not. My comparison is only to say, yes, he's only got a 1 year deal with an option of a second year, as far as I believe it to be. But if he falls in love with the club this season, and the club like him and he does well, there's no reason he might not sign a 4 year deal, a 5 year deal, and could give us. He's 28 going on 29. He's made his money. He could give us 4 or 5 years of good service if he turned out to be a decent player. There is a chance that we could end up stumbling into a situation where we get a good player for a good few years.
Aye, you might fall in love with a Glaswegian lad saying,
You
love
never
the
know.
iron brew and the square sausage.
Ian Atchell doesn't strike me that type of player. With the create emotional connections and stuff. Listen to Joe Hart talk about him and co-commentary. He was saying he's a very unique character. I don't think that would be in his head. I think this option. I'll be naive here again, but I think that option for the second year is on the proviso that Rodgers is still there at this moment in time. That might change. Gav, go ahead.
Can I just say, I'm sorry, Stephen. I don't know if you were discussing it earlier on, and I don't know if you might want to get to it, but I don't want to forget this point. See, how predictable we are right now about the team and how dominant we are on the left side. It's going to be quite easy to for a manager to set up against. I'm really, really quite worried about the lack of progress we make down the right flank. And I'm not talking about right back. I don't think right back is a problem right now. I just think that after Kuhn left, we've got Yang and Forrest, who they all have a little bit that they bring to the party, but it's not good enough. It's not consistent enough. And I'm really, really worried that we're just such a left-sided dominant team right now that we're not the full shilling as a team. It's probably a poor phrase to use, but we're predictable. We're even more predictable than what we used to be. The only outlet we've got is the left wing. We've got no confidence going down the right, and I'm just really, really worried about that for the season ahead. Even just make it to January before we might let Maida go, maybe bring in a right winger. I'm really, really worried about that. I don't know if either of you can share my concerns.
I said I think Stephen was in agreement with me, if you don't mind me saying, Stephen. I did say that, I think, when you were away as well, talking about the first half of the game, that all our play did go down there, and it's not going to be long before teams do just double up or triple up on him, and then that kills the left side, and we've got nothing on the right. Excuse me. I wonder if we might start seeing Maida on the left, Ian Atchell through the middle, and Tanecki on the right, because I'm not too sure we're sold on Balikwisha. Definitely not as a right winger anyway. My concern and my worry about how the club operate is that we might stumble into perhaps that trio that I've just said until we get to January, and then we just go with Jota on the left, Tanecki on the right, or flip them around during the game, and we're happy just to go because both Jota and Tanecki are very technically skillful, great attacking flair kind of players, and we might as a club just decide that's good enough and not fix the actual right wing issue, because there's nothing more that I would love to see than actually have Tanecki and Jota for the left, and that's our depth and quality and depth for the left side, and then see us rectify the right wing situation, because we are severely lacking. I know we can talk about James Forrest. He's a living club legend, playing club legend, and Yang is Yang, but Yang is, for all his effort and tries in the world, is a guy who was more than halfway out the door this summer, and then we're relying on him on actually being our number one right winger at this point in time. We need to, in my head, as much as we've got those two there, I don't actually think we have a right winger. Like, going forward in the timeline, we need to fix that. That's a void area of the pitch. Forrest is too old, and Yang's out the door. We need two right wingers in my head, because they're not to be counted in my head, if that makes sense, without being disrespectful to James Forrest.
Yeah, see, before I answer, what are you holding in your right hand?
Sorry, it's a pen holder.
Right, okay.
Point
of order.
I was in juju this week, so I'm totally in that fucking...
Yeah, I just think that we're totally misguided in our approach right now, because we obviously thought Maida was going to go. So, right, okay, let's stock up in the left wingers right now. So we've got Jota, who's going to come back at the early start of next season. You've got Maida, who is still a Celtic player. He's got a year and a half left in his contract, approaching a year and a half left in his contract. Plays in the left. He's probably not going to get in ahead of Ian Atchell right now, who is a certified centre forward. So you've got Tinetke, who's coming in, and he's doing the business. He is, as Brendan Rodgers said, he's a proper Celtic winger. He's got a wee bit more pace than Jota. He's still got trickery. I think one thing that we should be concerned about with Tinetke is his end product. That's the one thing I'm concerned about it, and we will find out more about it. I'm talking about whenever you get into the box, making the wrong decision, not getting the right pass, whether you cut it short or try and get it across the goal, or stop dragging your shot, that sort of thing, proper finishing. So Tinetke at the moment has got the shot at left wing. Maida, he's in purgatory right now, because he was either centre forward or a left winger, but he's came back and he's been fucked around by the club. So Roger said it earlier on, subconsciously, he might not be at the races.
Yeah,
that's what he alluded to. So Ian Atchell has got the centre forward position. Tinetke's got the left wing position. Maida, we can maybe play him on the right, probably better than keeping him on the bench. You'd probably rather Maida on the right than a James Forrest or a Yang. But then you've got Balak as well, who again is predominantly left and who looks fairly useless on the right. And also we'll get concerns about whether he can beat a man with pace or trickery. He looks like one of those guys who needs to link up with players in order to progress.
He's a Palmer.
Yeah. Very good comparison. So I think we've got a quandary. But Tinetke's got the left wing, Kelechi is got centre forward, and Maida needs to rediscover the fire in order to be effective on the right, because at the right, nobody's effective just now. And it's a big worry. We've got a league to win, and we've got Europe to not embarrass ourselves in. We're not going to win the Europa League, but let's just not fuck it up. Let's not do what Rangers are doing. Let's just play for pride.
I think as well, in regards to what you're saying, Tinetke, to be fair to his end product, there was a situation in the second half where he played a fantastic cutback to Nygren, and he should have scored, and Nygren fluffed his lines and hit it right into the keeper's arms. I don't know if you recall that one, do you? No. Well, it happened. Well, there you go. But the overall point you made, I do agree with. One thing I wanted to touch upon briefly there, Gav, was the goal we conceded. Set pieces. I was saying to McGinty when you were away, whatever you were doing, I don't want to speculate, when you were away being busy, that that we have a real issue at defending set pieces. Ross alluded to this as well when he gave his summary of the match into the group chat, and it came to bite us in the arse. The ball came into the box, a bit. Kasper Schmeichel decided to come off his line, missed it, and then it went into the middle, and Marko Nautovic was there to follow up and basically put it into an empty net, while also squaring up the Liam Scales for apparently no particular reason. But what was your opinion on the goal conceded? That seems to me a typical European goal that we always concede.
Yeah, we got it.
I'll start with you.
Yeah, it was kind of the ball played into the box. It wasn't cleared. It kind of ran away. The attacker retrieved it. He's allowed to turn around and then play the ball back in. And at that point, Kasper is totally committing himself. He's vacating the goal, and he's in no man's land. And if he doesn't stop that ball coming in, then we're completely vulnerable. So I think a little bit of decision making from Casper, I wasn't too pleased with that. And the fact that we never cleared it the first time, and the fact that we never put the boy under pressure whenever he did retrieve the ball. So the ball gets played square to Arnautovic, who just taps it in. It was too easy a goal. But on the whole, there was like a lot of chances that we allowed them to create in our box, especially in the first half. And I'm thinking, they should have put one or two away before that goal anyway. So although it was a poor goal to concede, I'm not surprised that we conceded on the whole anyway. And as Brendan Rodgers said, it's a good point. That's what we're reduced to now, because Celtic last season, with the heights that we achieved last season in Europe, we would have beat that team. I know that we're not a confident outfit whenever we go abroad in Europe, but last season, that team, the focus that they had, the mentality, the cohesion that they all had, they knew their roles. They would have been able to do the business in Serbia if it was them from last season, but not this group. The chips are down right now, and thankfully people like Kelechi was able to stand up and give us a point. Aye.
Yeah, and it is one of them. We spoke about that briefly when we talked about the match. First of all, McGinty, about the levels we've kind of dropped down. It's unfortunate, but we're here at the minute, and we'll have to make do with what we got, like Roger said. I mean, what's your overall opinion? Obviously starting with a point away to Belgrade, does it lay the foundation for, I think, our next tie, Braga, at home? And we've played Braga a few times, I believe. I think that we've beat them a few times. They've beat us as well, over in Portugal. But does it lay a foundation for a good start? Get 3 points next game, then you're on 4, and then you can kind of build the momentum.
You sound like you've got more faith and confidence than I do there, Stephen, because
I'm trying to give us something. Something.
As you say, we've fallen so far over the last 20 years. Every 5 years, as I said to you earlier, I think Gavin was away at the time. Every 5 years, it seems like the caliber of club that we compare ourselves to drops a level. We used to compare ourselves to being able to take the game to Juventus and your Milans of the world back in the early 2000s, Fortress Paradise and all this. To a few years later, we're comparing ourselves to your Ajax of the world, your Portos, and that's where we should be achieving. Then it's down to your Club Brugge levels, your Bodo Glimt levels of the world, and now zero disrespect to Red Star, but we're now at the level where Kairat Amati are beating us and Red Star point away. Looks like a fantastic result when realistically, as Gavin says, we should be going there without any disrespect, but we should be going there confident of getting the win. Doesn't mean we get the win, but we should go there confidently to impose ourselves and to try and get the win. And James will probably laugh at me as one of these comments I'm going to make that's going to be like, well, fucking obvious, but if Ian Actual doesn't get that goal, when he does, we get beat. He needed to score that goal because Red Star, for me, were always going to score a goal at some point because, as you said, typical Celtic goal to concede us a set piece. It's scrappy. It's pinged back into it was bad. But for the games going forward, as I said, you've got more hope and faith than I do because I look at how we started this season. I look at that game at midweek, and I look at the rest of the teams that were playing: Braga, Utrecht, Feyenoord. I don't think any of those teams are worse than Red Star. I think they're all, Feyenoord maybe is an exception, and definitely Roma is an exception. But I think most of the teams are probably at that level. And if we go into all these games like we did against Red Star, we can't be confident of any result. We might get the win, we might get beat, we might get the draw. There's no confidence in any of it. So as much as we say that's a point to build on away from home, the next 3 games, get the 3 wins, that's 10 points. That could see us through. I don't see the confidence in it. I don't see how we can go to Utrecht, Braga, and think we can win these games when these teams that are probably...
Are we not at home at Braga? Are we not playing them at home?
Sorry, I mean just generally to play them. I don't mean going to this game. I think those teams are looking at Celtic and they're thinking that's their 3 points. That's their... They must be thinking that's where we're getting 3 points because they're not getting 3 points against the equivalent of Roma and stuff. The only one that gives me any small confidence, and it's really grasping at straws for me, is Stuttgart. But I don't know enough about them in modern day to know if they're going to cause an upset to us, or if it is a team that should be. On paper, as Gav says, last year, if last year's team supported and invested in properly with the confidence and with the motivation and morale booster, is it last year's team goes into this year and probably wipes the floor with everybody other than Roma. But the way we've been in the last 5 months, I just don't see any positive that I'm more fearful that we don't progress than anything else at this point. I think we're not progressing in the group.
Well, it's a big statement to make at this very early juncture. We'll gauge that more when we're maybe 3 or 4 games deep into it. But I know Opta, the people who do like the stats and stuff, said that Celtic have the third toughest run of fixtures.
Yeah.
So they usually, actually they don't usually get stuff right, because they had us sitting at 98% percentile to get through to the Champions League proper, and that didn't happen. So things can drastically go wrong when you're doing stats and all. But before we kind of park the Europa League to one side and look ahead to the Hibs game tomorrow, Gav, I want to give a special mention to Genk yesterday. Got a good result away at Ibrox, and a former player of ours, O, scored the vital goal, and he really, 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 really milked the celebration. But for what it's worth, I loved every second of it. He took his goal really well. I'm not going to start, saying I told you so and all that, but I always thought O was a good player. And I know he missed a bucket load of chances, but he didn't give up, and he always got himself into the positions to score. And bar a couple of offsides, he maybe would have had a hat-trick as well, or maybe more goals. But he got his goal in the end. He finished it past Butland, and Genk got a good 3 points away to Ibrox against a team that are, I don't know how to describe them, to be honest, without using mad words. But what did you think when you seen O score against them yesterday?
Well, I was naturally very, very pleased, and I was thinking what your reaction would be, because I know that you've been a massive fan of O, possibly even more so since he's left the club in comparison to other Celtic players. And it's a great thing.
I like him.
Fair play to you. I was never a fan of Adamida from when he signed as a Celtic player permanently. And he was just a very, very raw player. And whenever we saw him celebrate last night, he celebrates like he plays with his heart on his sleeve, like 100 miles an hour. A very, very powerful player, but he maybe just doesn't possess, at this moment in his career, doesn't possess that finesse, and that kind of cool head. But the goal that he scored, brilliant goal, he had a lot of time to think about it. He eventually managed to get a shot away after 2 Rangers players were bearing down on him. But before then, he missed a very good chance when the ball was played across the face of goal, and he put it over the bar. And he also missed a penalty where he just went for power rather than finesse. And then there was another chance where the ball was played to him across the face of goal, but it was just a little bit too much on it from the cross. And so I don't blame him for not converting that one. But yeah, he got his goal, and you can see how pleased he was. Probably he put a lot of pressure on himself. And in fact, not only does he take his shirt off, he takes off that little training vest that he's got as well, just to make his point. So he was... Yeah, I'm very, very pleased for him. And it was kind of funny because in the summer we heard that he was on the periphery of making a transfer move for like 25 million or something like that, 23 million, which obviously made us really, really surprised. So I thought I'll watch this boy just to see what he's got in his locker. But it was kind of more of the same of what we already knew about. So maybe he just had a really, really good domestic campaign last season. I'm not too sure. Really, really pleased for him anyway. See, before we move on to the next part, can I just shout out the right back situation with Celtic about Colby Donovan? Do you mind if I
go for it?
Just wanted to say, see, whenever AJ got injured, at that point I'm thinking, and this was before I even saw Colby play, I just thought, ironically, with AJ out with a hamstring at the very start of the season, I had this feeling this might be the end of the road for Anthony Ralston. Not AJ, but Anthony Ralston, because I thought, well, we can't plod on with just one fit right back. We're going to have to bring in somebody else. And the danger is, if we bring in somebody else, are they going to be any worse than Anthony Ralston? And I hate to patronise the guy. Whenever you say an honest player, nobody wants to hear, oh, he's an honest player, because it doesn't mean that you're good. It just means that you're hard-working, but you don't possess that much talent. So I don't want to piss on Anthony Ralston. But when AJ got injured, thought, right, well, we need to do something. And the first comment that Brendan Rodgers said, well, we have to look from within. We need to see who we've got in the ranks and bring them up. And McGinty, I've heard you trot out that line so many times. Promote from within. And if he's not good enough, fair enough, then we'll buy somebody. And so that's what we've done. We never bought someone. We brought in Kobe Donovan. And now the boy makes mistakes, okay? He does make mistakes, but small mistakes. But and he's very young. I think he's just turned 19. But he's got a bit of height about him. He's got good athleticism. And even just the way that he wears his socks down at like the ankles, you know what I mean? There's just something about the guy where he's got the basics right. He's got the talent. He's got the athleticism, and he's got a bit of confidence about him. It kind of almost makes me think a little bit about, do you remember when Nathan Patterson at Ibrox broke through and started getting a run of games and it looked really impressive? I think that Kobe Donovan could be on the same trajectory at Celtic if we give him enough games. Now, the difficulty is we're playing Hibs tomorrow, and it's been announced that Anthony Ralston is now fit. So do we continue with Kobe Donovan, or do we bring Anthony Ralston? Now, I've been going to the games for a few years now, and obviously that doesn't give me any advantage over an armchair fan, but I get to see the movement that Anthony Ralston does. I get to see whenever he's afraid, and I think he plays with a lot of fear, Anthony Ralston. And on top of that, I don't think he's blessed with a lot of talent. I've got a good feeling about Kobe Donovan. Time will tell how far it goes. But AJ is going to come back. Eventually, he'll be fit, and he'll supersede him, and he'll get his place back. But I think Kobe Donovan could be the future. I've just got a good feeling about it. I'm not too bothered about his mistakes, even if, remember when Dane Murray made that mistake against Aston Villa in the Champions League down in Birmingham? I don't think MD was really, well, fuck it, we're losing the game anyway. You will learn from that. Kobe Donovan's not done that, but if he does do it tomorrow, I'm not going to lose my shit about it. I think he's got the basics, and I think he's going to get better. And if we stick with it, because McGinty's been talking about this for years, stick with it, bring through youth and give him a chance. I just think that this might be the one example where we should give him a chance. He's not fucked off to Bayern Munich or Chelsea when he was younger. He's came through the ranks. Let's stick with what we've got. Obviously, AJ will take his position, but keep Kobe Donovan as number 2. And maybe, I love you, Anthony Ralston, but maybe move on to another building site.
It's very like eerily similar like looking at the Kieran Tierney set Tierney when he broke in, because there was a lot of people in the youth academy that were ahead of Kieran Tierney in his age group. I think it was a player called Aidan McElduff. I've heard him being talked about, was ahead of him in the packing order for the B team. And just by chance, Ronnie Dillon needed a left back because the situation with Aguirre. And I think whatever happened, Kieran Tierney got that call back, and he call up, and he never looked back from that time onwards. And I was listening to Open Goal with Cy Ferry and Gordon Dizelle, Derek Ferguson, another one they're doing the Thursday. I think it's right in the Coupon, I think it's called, and Slaney, and they were talking about Kobe Donovan, and Simon Ferry was like, they played against Kobe Donovan last year, East Kilbride, against the B team, and he was like, he never really stood out there. He never really, you thought, wow, he's going to be the next big thing. But they talked about the resilience. They talked, like you said, his character, about not being afraid to make mistakes, dusting himself down, keep going, and eventually it comes right for you. And I think that's a prime example of you get your head down and you do the basics right. When you have that personality that Rodgers talks about, then you'll get your opportunity. He maybe only got his opportunity out of an injury, but players have to really knuckle down and take that. And for me, it looks like Colby Donovan is doing that. And I don't think he should be dropped for Anthony Ralston. He should hold on to the shirt until AJ comes back, and then he proves his fitness from there on out. But it's an exciting situation to be in. I like youth players being promoted. I like seeing youth players being given the opportunity if they're the right caliber of player. And Colby reminds me a wee bit of Lustig, that dangly type, Up and down the right hand side. Gets himself a lot of tussles, but he's not afraid of it. And he gets stuck in. I thought he dealt with himself. He dealt with the situation on their left hand side quite well whenever he was attacked in 1v1s as well. But McGinty, the kind of come to talk about both things, if you want as well. Starting with obviously O scoring yesterday. I seen the Gank put on their social media a video of O sitting down in the Ibrox tunnel, talking about
Really?
what that goal meant to him, and he was crying. I don't know if it was a bit surreal, let's say, but obviously, he loves Celtic. I'm guessing if that's his reaction, but it's just one of them ones. Obviously, the situation Russell Martin finds himself in, and then a former Celtic player put him to the sword. It's a match made in heaven. And then if you want to move on to the Colby Donaldson side of things as well after that.
Yeah, I've only just, whilst we were talking there, excuse me, seen the goal itself from O, and obviously the celebration. The video cuts out just after he takes off his shirt, and I presume he's doing the Messi celebration to some degree, the holding up the shirt in front of the Madrid fans.
Yeah, he done that playing for us as well.
Yeah, he did. I like that a little bit, and it's weird, as you say, obviously, you must have taken the club to heart to some degree to have that reaction to scoring against Rangers. I don't know what it really says overall, because he never made the lasting impact as a player at Celtic, where the fans, we see, obviously with Paddy McCourt, Sam Rass, Tom Roderick, these are guys where if they were in a situation of going to another club and scoring against Rangers, you'd expect them, because of the cult status they had with the club, that they would do that. Whereas O was, as much as I wanted him to be a good player for Celtic, and I think there's a player in there to come out at some point in his career, he's more on the lines of, your Rasmussens as a striker, your Lasage, your Mikus. We all remember them.
So happy with that.
We all remember them, but they're not going to.
That's a wild statement, isn't it? Like Morton Rasmussen compared to you. Come on.
Is it wild though, in the sense that, in 10 years' time, nobody's going to talk about O in the same way that we talk about Hooper or Griffiths?
No, I get you. I get what you mean. Obviously, yeah.
In that respect of Rasmussen, Lasad, Miku kind of level. But it's just weird that he's taken to the club that well, that goal means something to him. So fair play to him. And if it is that he's a fan of the club, from a sporting sense now, brilliant. Come on back and enjoy a game with the fans, sort of thing. Don't come back to be a player, of course, unless he gets really good.
Fucking back. I take him back.
Actually, I probably would. As right now. But I fair play to him. On to the Colby Donovan situation, the right back thing. And Gavin, you're 100% right. And this is the kind of thing that I'm screaming out for, is giving opportunities to youth players. I dislike that it has to come from a point very much like Chiantini, through necessity of injuries, because if it wasn't for Tony Ralston getting injured, I think we could probably all confidently say that Tony Ralston would be starting all the games that Colby Donovan started, and Donovan would be on the bench getting fleeting moments rather than the time that he's got. It's purely AJ and Ralston being injured has got Donovan in the door. And as great as it is that he's now getting the minutes of the game time, it shouldn't take this situation to be able to get his game time. He should have been... I mean, he's only just turned 19, so it's hard to say last season, of course not. But we should be looking at Donovan being the replacement to Ralston immediately, as soon as AJ's back fit. It should be AJ and Donovan. But see, going for the rest of this season, it shouldn't be that Donovan only gets the minutes that Ralston was getting, which was pretty much, fuck, AJ needs a rest, put Ralston on. We should be managing Donovan's game time that actually comes on in the same way that we managed Chiantini in the first few games, taking him off at the 60-minute mark, bringing on somebody else, Scales getting that half hour there, Sriracha getting the half hour there. once AJ's back fully fit, Donovan deserves to be properly utilised and getting regular minutes every week, not just getting 10 minutes every 5 weeks, because we need to give him a rest. He needs to continue his development, because at some point AJ's going to leave Celtic. I hope he doesn't, but at some point he will. And I want Donovan to be ready to take over and not still, I don't want 2 years down the line that once everybody's fit and full of iron, 2 years down the line, Donovan's only got 120 minutes under his belt. He needs more.
See, Anthony Ralston, he's had the best job in the world as a Celtic fan. You've got a job where you get paid handsomely. You get to train and play football every day. You get to keep a core fitness, and occasionally you get to play a few minutes in hoops during the season. He's got the perfect job, but circumstances have arisen where somebody who's been given a chance ahead of him now. And I think even at a tender young age of the 19, we can all see that Donovan has got stronger set of skills than what Ralston does. So if I was Ralston, which would be funny, I'd be updating my CV, looking for jobs and telling the wife, look, we've had it good here, but I think we're going to be moving house soon. I think that's what's going to happen with Anthony Ralston. He's had it very good for very long, and I don't mean to be facetious. I don't mean this badly, but we're a club. We're not a charity here. We need to be looking to strengthen. We need to be looking to do better. Sticking with Anthony Ralston out of sentimentality or a lack of ambition is just not the way forward. AJ is the man, okay? He will always have that number one spot until someone better comes along. But no, Kobe Donovan for me has demonstrated in a very small sample size that he's better. He's got more potential than Anthony Ralston. So we need to be brave enough to make that decision, because if I'm a youth player, like a few years younger in the B team, and I'm looking at Kobe Donovan, who's maybe a few years older than me, I'm saying, oh, this guy's got his chance, and I was taking it, and I'm like, I'm talking to my mates, I'm like, he's better than Ralston, he's been doing far better. But then if Brendan Rodgers says, no, Ralston, you're fit again, you take the jersey, Kobe, thank you for your services, you can take the bench again. If I'm a youth player who's younger than Kobe and looking up that lineage, I'm like, this club isn't for me. Because if you get your chance and you do well, they're going to pick on reputation, pick on sentimentality, pick on servitude. That is not the answer. Best man for the job, and at the moment, is Kobe Donovan until AJ comes back. So again, no adversity towards Ralston, but for me, there's a pecking order, and he has pipped him in that line.
That's what young players have to do when they get that chance to have to take it. I think Kobe Donovan has definitely done that. He's really impressed all of us here, and even in the chat, the majority seems like they agree with what you're saying, Galvin. To move it on till tomorrow's game, 3 p.m. kickoff, McGinty back at Parkhead against Hibs, a Hibs team who, in my opinion, should be embarrassed about how they conducted themselves against Rangers last week. They played within themselves, they played with fear, they played with trepidation, when in theory they should have went after them, but they didn't. And I'd been absolutely scundered if I supported Hibs after watching that. Ever since they've been out of Europe, they haven't really had a good run. They've been beat a few times. They still have good players like Bhoys and Boyle and Hoylett to come off the bench to make an impact in middle of the pitch as well. And I think they made their club record signing. Funny enough, but he's never really made it off the bench for some weird reason. But he's there as well. So look, they've got some interesting players. Rocky Bashiri at the back. Grant Hanley come in, experienced player. Jordan Smith, goalkeeper. So they've got some players who have experience, who have quality. But as I said, I was fuming watching them last week play against Rangers. I was fucking so annoyed because I thought they could have imposed themselves on it. Coming to Parkhead, what are you expecting? Do you think they'll be? We should be right up for it. I think this should be. Celtic Hibs games are usually tasty. There's usually goals in them. And hopefully the likes of Iheanacho, Tanetke, whoever may start up top can really exploit that and hammer home a few goals for Celtic. James Kennedy's already in predicting a 3-0 victory, McGinty. How are you feeling about tomorrow?
Not confident, but that's because of the stop-start, more stop kind of way that we've started this season. If the right Celtic shows up, it's an easy win. at home against pretty much any domestic team. But if we play how we have been, then it's how soon do we get the first goal? If it's not early enough, then we run that risk that teams can score against us. Although defensively we have been quite solid, it's always we invite pressure onto ourselves. We slow the game down too much, and we run the risk of those silly mistakes that can happen. So I'm not confident of a 3-0 or 4-1, and I'm not confident that the real Celtic is stepping out yet. Until we see that exciting, dominant performance from Celtic, I don't think we can be confident in any of these games, especially against teams like Hibs. Your Hearts as well. Even to a degree, I know they're rock bottom in the bottom of the table, but if we were to play Aberdeen, I wouldn't be overly confident right now, because I just don't know that as a team, as a squad of players that we've got, that we're firing on all those cylinders as much as we have been getting the results, that we're confident of the result, if that makes sense. I would still expect to win regardless, but I'm just not confident. A defeat to Celtic in the league is going to happen, because we're just not playing that great, and we run that risk that's going to happen sooner or later.
Again, I just wanted to ask you, where is your doubts? Okay, so I totally get that you're not confident, but we're playing at home against Hibs, who traditionally try and make a game of it. We've got Kelechi now at centre forward, who knows where the goal is. We've got Nygren, who, for all his faults, is probably the most productive of all the midfielders in terms of assists and goals so far this season. And we've brought in Tunetke, who's looked very industrious, a player who gets people off their seats and can actually make chances happen. And I think we've got a somewhat resolute defence domestically. So I get that we can be slow starters, and we've got that horseshoe kind of style, and maybe over deliberate. And we've spoken about our predictability on the right flank. Well, the lack of progress down the right flank. But I think that there are some positives. I was just wondering, why are you so doubtful that we're not going to win the match, even by a couple of goals? I think that we've probably got enough within us to do that. I was just wondering why we're top of the league and we've only conceded one goal, I think, domestically.
Something like that, yeah.
Why are you so doubtful?
I just feel that the way that our performances are, that we're if on this side we've got the free flowing, the 6-0 dominant victory, the exciting attacking football, totally in control Celtic, and on this side you've got Roy Keane at Clyde, for a random example of a shit game of football that we've played. I think if we've got that spectrum, I think our performances are here rather than here, if that makes sense. I think we're closer to. I think we're closer performance-wise to having a fuck up than we are to dominate a team, to blowing a team away. And as great as it defensively, as you said, I think it is. You're right. We only conceded one goal. We invite the potential of that mistake to happen. We invite the counter-attack. It's not every game we're playing just now. It's not hard to see that if a team breaks us quickly enough in the right way, that we're going to crumble at times. Liam Scales at times is a mistake waiting to happen, depending on how he gets turned with the
But the caveat that Liam Scales is probably our best defender at Red Star,
which is crazy, but true. I'm just not confident that the win is always there. I'm not confident to go into a game and say, yeah, we're going to get 3-4 goals tomorrow. Because I don't, as good as Tunetke looks and as excited as I am by Ian Atchell as well, we're waiting for 5 players to all kick on. But if they're not kicking on, then they're 5 players who are waiting for the game to override them. The midfield is easily overrun, outplayed at times because of the imbalance. I think there's a mistake in the defence at times, although it's not shown up yet. I'm just not confident. I've just not got the faith in the team yet. I've not been. I still feel I still feel like we play pre-season style football rather than free-flowing, exciting, dominating football. I don't think we're not clicking yet. We're not ready yet.
That's fair.
I don't know if I'm making sense there, but
no, I get it. I think it's coming from the point of as well. We haven't blown teams away yet domestically. There's been a lot of tight games, 1-0s, whatever, and obviously the draw against Sevco recently as well. But Gav, what's your opinion? A lot of people in the chat saying that Hibs have really dropped off. We still know they have quality, and obviously Martin Boyle, he's an operator at this level. Kieran Bhoys, up and coming, recently in the Scotland squad. I think they still have, Josh Campbell, who's a goal scoring midfielder. Could go on and on, but they do have talent throughout the team. David Gray proved that last season by going 17 or 18 games unbeaten. So that's not underestimate them. But unlike McGinty, I am confident after what I've seen last week when they played Rangers. I thought they were absolutely abysmal. And if they play like that against us, I think we would have a field day. Let's say maybe not 4-5, but I think comfortable and a win should be on the cards.
Yeah, I think we're entitled to expect 3 points tomorrow as Celtic fans. Looking at the table, okay, so Hibs, they're in 4th, but they've played 5 games, okay? They've won 1. They've drawn 4. They've scored 10 and they've conceded 9. So although they're 4th, that's been a shit start, They've only been able to win 1. Admittedly, they've not lost any, but, it's better than Rangers, but it's still shit anyway. So I think David Gray will be wanting Hibs to up their standards. And you made a good point. What the way that they played at Ibrox in the last game, that was pretty crap. So they'll be looking to do themselves justice. And in terms of on the counter-attack with Martin Boyle and Bowie as well, that's 2 players that we should be watching out for. So we're just hoping that our fullbacks and the centre-backs, they're cute enough to recognise the break and they're prepared for it, and we've got the pace to kind of counter that. But I expect us to win, as you said. I think we've got enough about us. I think that in the past couple of weeks, with the fact that Tinetki's come into the team and Kalechi has come into the team, it's looking a bit better. The chips aren't as down as what they were before. Even Yang got a goal, so maybe his confidence is up as well. Look, I just think that we've got enough about us we'll dominate the ball. Now, to an extent, McGinty might be right. It might be a huff and puff performance. It might be nothing each at half time, and it might take until the second half before we get the opening. But over the course of the 90 minutes, I expect us to score at least 2 goals in that game.
Yeah, and I can see that as well. I mean, for me, if we're going to do quick fire score predictions, I'll go 3-0 to Celtic. McGinty, what would your gut feeling tell you right now?
2-1.
Gav?
Either 3-1 or 4-0.
Oh, okay.
That's quite a difference.
That's a
2-goal advantage swing.
Yeah, I've got a margin here. Worst case scenario, best case scenario.
And look, we are heading rapidly towards 2 hours, 30 minutes live. It's been a great podcast. Thanks for the people who stuck with us. I want to hand it quickly to McGinty and Gav here. If there's anything you want to cover before we end, because I'm all out of stuff. Gav,
yes.
You're shaking your head, yes.
Very, very, very briefly, and I'm going to say this without any real opinion on it, or knowledge on it, or conversation.
Without any opinion, or without any knowledge on it. What is it? Climate change?
Well, I just feel like if you're doing a Celtic podcast on a Friday evening, when Celtic have actually released the Fairhurst report about the incidents at the Celtic Rangers game back in March, they did release a statement about it on the website. I think it was just shortly before 5 o'clock this evening. I've briefly read it on the side whilst we've been on air, so I'm not going to say anything much more beyond initially just scanning it. It looks like basically Celtic have came out and says, we've done the independent review and the report on it, and nothing to do with us. We weren't at fault. Blame somebody else. the quick comments that I'm seeing on social media seem to be saying the same thing. Basically, way to go Celtic, not taking responsibility. Whether or not Celtic can take responsibility for Police Scotland's action, I think this is going back to when you remember large sections of the fan base was corralled in the street and not allowed to go to the game at all. There was questions posed to them, and basically every question Celtic were basically like, not our fault, nothing we did, nothing we could control. What's my opinion on not wiping? Don't fucking do it. As in, don't not wipe. Don't not wipe. But yeah, I think it would be bad of us not to at least mention that reports came out today. Not enough that have been read to make as a topic of debate, but I think we should at least acknowledge that it was there, so people go read it and make your own judgments.
I wouldn't say bad. I just kind of forgot about it because I knew it was released, but yeah, the Fair House assessment has been released on Celtic's website, official social media channels about the policing issues that happened at Glasgow Derby game. So have a read of it. I quickly glanced over it, and it was a lot of the clubs saying that they had no say in it or no collusion in it and all that stuff. So have a read of it. Come up with your own opinions to that. It's there. But Gav, yes, you were shaking your head as well. What is there something that you want to add in?
Yes, I do. I want to talk about Callum McGregor before we finish up. But I guess one quick point. The Ballon d'Or winner was Dembele for PSG. You guys quite happy with that? Did you think anybody else was more deserving of Dembele?
Pedri.
Okay.
I think Pedri is an honest shout.
Was he not injured for a fair bit last?
No, that's Gavi. You're thinking Gavi.
Okay.
I think Pedri's a fair shout. Although, if my memory serves me right, from what I've seen people comment, goals and assists and winning the Champions League, Dembele merits to be probably in the top three, if not win it. But I think things like the Ballon d'Or should be more than just goals and assists. It should be more than just stats. It should be the best footballer. However you calculate best footballer, it should be the best footballer for me. And probably Pedri, I think, should be argued and debated if he should have won it over Dembele.
I just don't think he had enough media coverage, Pedri. I don't know. He was not a name that stuck out for me. Stephen, what about you?
Well, I think I said in our group chat as well that the next 10 or so years, it's going to be dominated by Lamine Yamal. I think the Ballon d'Or, regardless. There's a couple of shouts in there. You could look at that PSG team. Vitinha, João Neves, great players in their own right, really helped the team to the Champions League last season. Dembele probably had his best season in his whole career. So, again, you can't overlook him. I think probably the decision was fair. Out with that, I think someone shared as well that you look at the Ballon d'Or candidates of the 2000 campaign compared to the Ballon d'Or candidates of now.
Is that the one where Ronaldo, Beckham, Owen, Ronaldo, Figo,
big massive?
You're like, fucking hell.
Yeah, compared to now, you've got that. Yeah.
Lamine Yamal, he missed out on being the youngest ever Ballon d'Or. So I take it that if he wins it next year, probably be the same age as Michael Owen, who was probably
maybe the youngest, was he? Yeah.
I'm assuming so.
I think you might be right. I think the other one would be obviously to assume Messi might have been by the time he won it.
I think Messi was in his early 20s before he won his first Ballon d'Or. But in terms of the youngest, the only person I can think of, unless you're going back pre the 90s, then I think the youngest I can think of is Michael Owen, who won it with Liverpool in the early 2000s. But anyway, I think Dembele, fair enough. But I just think whenever you're talking about now in the comparison to back then, I think back then you had individuals, people who had the freedom to express themselves as a footballer, whereas now you're a cog in a machine and you need to play a certain role.
Can I just say in that then, with Dembele, it's not an injustice that he won it. I think he's deserving, but I think there's genuine debate that Pedri should have been in theirs before.
Well, I think I would disagree
against Dembele.
I would say that if it's Barcelona, it's going to be Rafinha over Pedri. That's my opinion. He had the goals, he had the assists. I think Rafinha's been brilliant for Barca. But I think in terms of like Dembele, the arc that he had, because he was a Barca player before, and he was the fall guy at one point. They could have made it to a final of the Champions League, but he messed up. I think it was against Liverpool where he had the chance at the new camp to square it to Messi, but he messed up and he skied it and he put it wide. And that was the goal that would have made it impossible to overturn the aggregate score at Anfield. But he never scored. And then at Anfield, they put on a masterclass against Barca. That was the one where Trent Alexander-Arnold took that quick corner kick and Divock Origi scored. That was a tie, which Dembele get vilified for it. But he's came back from that, and he's redeemed himself, and he's done very, very well.
Dembele's move from Dortmund to Barca, I know it was 100 million plus or something. At that time, was he the most expensive? Was that before Coutinho? Was that before? It was definitely before Neymar moved. Also, Neymar moved.
I'm going to tell you, I don't think he ever broke the transfer record.
He didn't break it, no. But he's up there as being one of the most expensive at the time. Obviously, 100 million is going to always be expensive, but he certainly never lived up to his price tag at Barcelona. No. But his potential was always there. You could always see it, and I think it's taken him going to PSG to come out as such a great player and to live up to his potential ahead of Dortmund. When you think that before going to PSG was all about your Mbappes and your Messis and your Neymars and your Cavani's. They were the modern East Galacticos of what Real Madrid were doing in the 2000s. But it's taken PSG to scrap that mantra and bring in Dembele, who was such an expensive signing for Barca, to actually find the footballing team that actually complements Dembele and allows Dembele to do what he does. And he, as I say, it's no slight, it's no that there's an injustice being done by Dembele winning the Ballon d'Or. I think it's okay, but I think there's a good debate for other people. I mean, Lamine Yamal is a great debate. You know, he's won the Euros. He's done so well with Barcelona. Pedri as well is for similar reasons probably a better footballer and probably dominated. Again, as you said, media presence. He's probably not had the media highlight on him even as much as Yamal did. But yeah, I think it's a good season. It's a good year for the Ballon d'Or to have the debate, and nobody's criticising it in the way that, you know, even when Messi and Ronaldo were winning it year on year, and Messi's most recent one when he won it when he was still in Milan, didn't he? Not in Milan, in Miami. And it's like, really, Messi, because you won the World Cup, you have to give him the Ballon d'Or at the same time. You know, there's debate about that. Whereas with Dembele, I don't think that debate's there. I think he is justified to win it. I just think there's a debate about other people who could have won, but it doesn't take away from Dembele.
I agree. So just the last point I wanted to make about Celtic, Callum McGregor. So I think we're kind of a stage right now where there's a lot of chat, there's a lot of discourse right now about the effectiveness of Callum McGregor in the team, and I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on, is this the last big season that Callum McGregor will play in the Celtic team before he's put on the periphery? So just to kind of like take you back a little bit, sorry if you guys are getting tired and if you wanted to wrap up, but I think people are scared to have this discussion. I really think they are. But back in the 10th of July 2023, where Cam McGregor had signed a 5-year deal with Celtic, that's when he turned 30. Signed a 5-year deal with Celtic, keeping it at the club until 2028. And at that point, people were doubting his effectiveness as the Celtic midfielder back then. And I think since then, he's went on to have a good 2 years somewhat. The following year in 2028, he also, or 2024, he announced his international retirement. So he's obviously kind of followed Scott Brown and doing that roughly at that age. He turned 32 in the summer though, and last season he played 54 games and he had a really impressive scoring record of 8 league goals, and he had 2 Scottish Cup goals as well. But he finished the campaign with a career first of losing a cup final, which is a brilliant feat in a way, to go so long and not lose a cup final up until that age. But he said he would come back even more determined than ever. And you can see how much he meant to him, because the guy was in tears. And obviously he's a massive, massive Celtic fan, and the club means so much to him. But I'm just wondering, is the body betraying his mind at this kind of stage in his career? And he spoke in the summer of prolonging his career at the top and having to reinvent himself. But I want to ask you guys, how important is Callum McGregor right now to Celtic on the park for this coming season? And now, for the way that we are set up with like 3 midfielders, is it just a case that we don't have anybody with the footballing IQ that McGregor's got? I think we can probably all agree with that. He's probably the smartest footballer out of everybody, but nobody can maybe do his role, pick up from the defence, turn around and try and start play. Maybe nobody's got the intelligence that he's got, but I think practically everybody, has got greater athleticism than what he's got. And I just think that his lack of athleticism, and he's never been a big guy, but his lack of speed, his lack of strength, I think is just getting shown up game after game after game. Now, he could put in a 5-star performance tomorrow, and then I'll be thinking back, oh, I was so harsh on him last night. But I just think that it's not a one-off. We're developing a track record right now of Callum McGregor. We know about it in Europe away. Nobody's great for Celtic away in Europe. But, like games against Rangers and stuff like that, where he's losing the midfield battle and stuff like that, the guy is smart with the ball at his feet. But I just think everybody else is catching up with him right now. I just think he's aging quite quickly before our eyes. He's 32. We've got him until 2028, as I said, with that contract. Stephen, I know you're getting tired. I'm sorry, mate. What's your thoughts? Well, we're sentimental probably in giving them that contract, and you want to reward players who have given their loyalty to Celtic, and by God, he's given that. But there all came a point for Celtic captains, especially people who played in the middle of the park. Paul McStay in his early 30s, when he was injury prone, and he just didn't have the legs for it anymore. Neil Lennon, Scott Brown, and now we've got Callum McGregor. It's a familiar story. How long are we going to continue with this? And how much of a problem is it? Am I just dramatising it?
I think Celtic and the coaching team have been really guilty of overusing McGregor, especially in games where he doesn't necessarily need to be on the pitch. For example, Partick Thistle, most recently down at Firhill. I look at it from the lens as well, where rotation could really help out here, because in the SPFL, that's not being around the bush. We're expected to beat 99% of the teams week in, week out. Bernardo could come in and let him rest. You could play Engels in his position, and there could be different solutions. McGregor to me has started the season poorly. I think that I think Ross again said it in the group chat. He's running like he has dumbbells tied to his feet. I found that analogy quite funny, but it's true. He looks really slow. He looks really passive. There's been times players have broke away from him, and he's never had the legs that run back and catch him like he used to. And I say catch him in terms of get up, square the man up and that type of thing. Not really to put a tackle in, but just to be there as in his tactical position. He's been caught out quite a lot this season. And I was saying to McGinty when you were off there, Gav, for a bit, in the European games especially, it's one pass and it's through our midfield, and it's their attack against our defence. It's far too open. It's far too passive. You looked at the Scott Brown succession plan. It only worked because we had McGregor in the door already. He was ready-made. He was going to be there and going to be the new captain. There was no secret about that, and he kind of slot it into that quarterback position that Roger spoke about in his first tenure here. So that was already there, but we haven't addressed this situation, and I think you're right. It sits a wee bit, uncomfortable with people that we're having this chat. Yeah. It seems like to me a lot of people want to kind of brush it over and talk about other players, but when you see the centre halves constantly passing to McGregor, and then McGregor giving the ball back to them and then pointing to where they should be passing, instead of McGregor making that first time pass, maybe quicken up the play a wee bit, And it just seems to me, it's like you mentioned it earlier, we're so predictable. There's no element of our play at the moment that takes a team by surprise. Like, why can our centre halves not miss out McGregor on the first pass straight into midfield, give it to Rio to turn, give it to Negrin to thread a pass through to Iheanacho, for example? It's all far too slow. McGregor gets it every time. It's like a triangle. It's like a force field. It just goes boom, boom, back, 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 back. And you've seen in the Red Star game, there was a point where we were defending and the ball broke to McGregor at the edge of our box. And it looked like he was going to break out. But he played a stupid ball inside him, the Yang, and then it got overturned and they hit the bar from it. You know, he's making these decisions that he never used to. He's very, at the moment anyway, he's very indecisive. It's like he doesn't know where he fits in his own role at the moment. It's like he's trying to do too much, and he's almost taken the responsibility for all Celtic's tactical movements and, you know, transitions of play and defensive play and attacking play. It's like he wants to be involved in it all instead of just being one position, stay there, you know, take control of the game from there. And unfortunately, the whole yard of pace thing, that you were right. People were talking about that last season. I think he's got even slower this season, and I think that's partly down to Celtic overusing him. I don't know the solution to it yet, Gav, because, you know, people do say that one of our best performances last season, I think it was against Kilmarnock at home, or it might have been away. I don't know. One of you can correct me. When McGregor wasn't in the midfield, and it was Bernardo, Engels, and Rio. And it was far more quicker, more fluid. They were missing out the first man, getting the ball in the midfield, one touch pass up into the strikers, and really creating the play from there. But with McGregor, it's just much of a muchness at the moment. It just slows down when it gets to his feet. There's so many times when he's at the halfway line and he has the whole pitch to look at, but he comes back on himself and he gives it to centre half, or he plays the nice ball to Kieran Tierney that looks like it's progressive, but it's really not, because Kieran Tierney has to go back on himself because he's closed down, and give it to his scales and the play restarts. So, you know, there's a lot of factors here that are quite concerning. Again, is the solution a new signing? Who could that be at this moment in time? I don't know. But I think in the next season, there really needs to be a competition in there for McGregor, because he's starting needless games. Get someone similar in, take the load off him, you know, and use him. Obviously, he'll still be a key player. I don't want him dropped or anything, but he just needs rest. He needs to recuperate. He doesn't need used every game, Gav.
I hear what you're saying, Stephen. I don't mean to criticise you, but see, whenever you say he doesn't need dropped, but we just need to manage his game time, is that a bit of a cop out? If we think that he's no longer the solution to carry us forward, what I'm saying is he's probably the smartest player in the park, but it's just that the athleticism is passing him by right now. So whenever you say he's still good enough to play for us, doesn't need to be dropped, but just manages game time. Like for the Partick Thistle game, the Partick Thistle game is not an important game. We can easily get by without him. But for the big games, do we still play Callum McGregor because we need him, or do we need at the end of the season to say, look, man, we need to bring in a player who's going to take your position because we're just not going forward. We're not improving with you as our number 6. It's a harsh question, and you're right. I think a lot of the actual fan media will talk about it, but see the actual commentary team, the manager, sports media, the commentators in games, they won't say it because it carries a strong reputation, and people don't like calling out that. It sounds like you're shooting a peer, you know, like you're stabbing a peer in the back. People don't like doing it. We're brave enough to say it, but is he still the solution next season, or do we need to say, fuck it, man? You've served your piece. Now you're going to be the Anthony Ralston. Now you're going to be the second choice. What is it?
I think for me, it's two things. I mean, he's not the solution this season, and especially in European games. And look, you're saying about, you know, am I copping out? I'm not copping out, because the reason it's not a cop out, we don't have anyone to come in right now and take his position. What Callum McGregor needs in European football is protection. He needs someone to sit with him. Like I said, like Rodgers favoured the 4-2-3-1 system when he first came in. He had a Brownie beside a Stuart Armstrong or a Christie or a Oliver Neesham. You know, not typical number 6, but they offered protection to each other. And right now, McGregor's left isolated because Negrin drifts to the right-hand side, Rio drifts to the left, and then once the European team gets the ball, that's why it's a one-pass situation when it's attack-free defence, because McGregor's not getting out to his man quick enough. And then there's 2 other spur men depending on formations. And then it's passed around him. And he looks like he's a headless chicken lost at sea because Negrin or Atate aren't offering him that protection. So for me, the solution would be to change tactical style in European football. Go a wee bit more pragmatic, offer a wee bit more protection in midfield, whether that's a Bernardo coming in to play alongside him, whether it's an Engels to come in and play alongside him, and then you can play a Negrin or a Rio in the number 10 position, instead of having two of our midfield players drifting everywhere along the pitch. And then once a European team get the ball, then it's just McGregor sitting there, and there's maybe, let's say, 3 or 4 players breaking on him. It's a tough situation to be in. I do agree his legs have gone, but a lot of that has to do with our tactical system in Europe doesn't work. So there needs to be a different approach, in my opinion, from Brendan Rodgers.
Fair dues. Didn't mean to call you out. I just wanted to stress test your argument. That's all I was wanting to do. It looks like McGinty's went off for another toilet break. Did we discover what type of beer that McGinty's drinking tonight?
He's drinking that one. Was it Mebraham? Or I can't say it. Is it
Menabrea or something?
Menabrea. Aye, that one. That one. Nice. My wine was finished about 2 hours ago. For fuck's sake!
I was going to ask you how you getting on with that.
It's gone. But you want to add on to the McGregor conversation there, McGinty, before we wrap up?
A little bit. I don't want to take up too much time. Obviously, 9 minutes to the 3 hour mark is a record for me personally on a podcast.
3 hours. 3 hours.
Gavin posed the question originally about leadership within the squad. Do we need Callum McGregor in that sense? I think with the return of Kieran Tierney, I think the answer to that simply is no, we do not need Callum McGregor for leadership in the squad, especially the first team squad. Because if you take Callum McGregor out, you're going to have Kieran Tierney there. You're going to have the return of Alistair Johnston, who are both great leadership positions and roles and players and personalities. I think Carter Vickers brings a lot of leadership. I think Kasper Schmeichel brings a shit ton of leadership. Players don't need to have been here all the career of 3, 4, 5 years to be able to bring that leadership, that captain mentality, that role to them. We might be lacking it in the rest of the midfield going forward to the attack. People can obviously look at Luke McCowan being the captain at Dundee, Celtic fan, and all the rest of it. He will bring leadership as well, but he's obviously, as a squad player, he's not a starting player. So you don't drop Callum McGregor to bring Luke McCowan in as a starting player, because Callum McGregor is definitely a better player than Luke McCowan, so you don't drop him for that reason. But if you were to drop Callum McGregor, I think there's still leadership within the starting squad that you don't need it. And as you said, Gavin, when it comes to games like Partick Thistle, that's a prime chance to drop him and see how the team works without him being there. And we had those opportunities when, as you rightly said as well, Gavin, with Scott Brown. It's some familiar story that we've been down before with Scott Brown. He was relied on too long, to the point where it became more of an issue for us rather than the question that we're asking now: at what point do we switch the changing of the guard sort of thing? And Lennon as well is another one. You hang on to these players long after the player's actually effective, just because of the character and the leadership quality they bring. So I think we should drop it because there's other leaders in the squad. But I think we should also, at times, drop him because we need to, like Scott Brown, there's some games when we eventually did drop Scott Brown because of usually injuries or whatever, that we actually saw at times that we played better football without Scott Brown. And Stephen, you said it earlier as well about, I think it's Bernardo playing as well in one game when McGregor didn't. We actually played a faster fluid game. I think that's because, again, back to what we're saying a lot earlier in the night about the balance of the midfield, we're asking 6 midfielders who are all number 8s to play either a number 6, or who are all number 10s practically, to play number 8s or number 6 roles. Nobody's playing their position that they're actually naturally gifted at. Even McGregor back in his young days, when he went out to Notts County, he got 12, 14 goals. He was a number 10, and we're asking him to play number 6 for the last 4 years as a 28, 29, 30, 31-year-old now, 32. It's mad that we're asking for all these players not to play the position that they actually all want to play. So I think the balance in the midfield needs to be changed. Is it just playing with a 4-3-3 and a 3-man trio of the midfield and change the personnel? Or is it going to a 2-man midfield with a number 10, a flat 4-4-2, a 4-2-3-1? I don't know what the answer is, but I think there is scope to suggest, as you say, Gavin, have the conversation or suggest that McGregor could be dropped because there's other leaders in the team, and rebalance the midfield, play the midfield differently, and I think we might get a different performance out of the squad, out of the team, if we change that midfield up.
I think, right, okay, the final point I'll make, Stephen looks as if he's very tired. I'll just say that I think it should be the last season where Callum McGregor is a regular first team player. I think of Steve Davis for Rangers at the same age as Callum McGregor is right now, and he looked more effective. He just looked as if the type of player that you just don't want to play against. Callum McGregor right now doesn't look like the type of player that opponents say, "Oh no, Callum McGregor's playing. I don't like playing against him." Callum McGregor just looks too ineffective, and we see it every week. Sometimes he'll put in a good performance, but I think whenever he puts in the good performance, it kind of papers over the cracks. I don't think he's a long-term solution, and we need to be looking for long-term solutions for Celtic because we need a turnover in players.
I think you're right, Gavin, and I'd rather we find out now that we can play without Callum McGregor than wait until he's 35 and we're struggling. Yeah, and he's a hindrance to us. He's not a hindrance now, but the debate is correct to have, and I'd rather we fixed it before we go a whole season, almost like we did with Scott Brown. No offense to the guy, we went a whole season with Scott Brown knowing he was letting us down is a really bad term, but I think you know what I mean. He wasn't as effective as he could have been. We held on to him too long because he was captain. I think we need to figure that out sooner with Callum McGregor before we get to that stage as we did with Scott Brown. I think we're close to it. Is it this season? I don't know. Is it next season? Probably. But I think we're close to it, and we need to as a squad plan and build to play without him.
Yeah. Do you remember? Sorry, Stephen, I'm really, really sorry. Do you remember? Correct me if I'm wrong. Neil Lennon's final game for Celtic under Gordon Strachan. It was that cup final at Hampden where he get taken off at half time. We kept on playing him, get taken off at half time because it was nothing each, and eventually we won the game in the second half. And he was bitterly disappointed at getting taken off at half time. But Gordon Strachan had to make that decision. I think it was his final game for Celtic. We ended up winning the cup final. But it was just a great example of persevering with somebody that you love so well, who's got the captaincy, who's got the aura, but he's just no longer effective. And you're like, fuck it, I need to make a really harsh decision in a game that really, really matters, but I'm doing it for the betterment of the team. I think this is kind of where we're leading up to with Callum McGregor. We love him, but the game is kind of passing him by now, I think, athletically, and sooner or later we're going to have to make that choice. My final.
Yeah. Totally agree. What a marathon podcast this has been, and I'm not going to beat around the bush with you. I am fucking exhausted. I'm so tired right now. It's incredible, but I appreciate. Go ahead.
We've got 1 minute before 3 hours.
I said 3 hours.
I do. By the way, appreciate the people who stuck with us as well during the time of the hopefully 3 hours that we hit. I know Gal's busting his balls to hit the 3 hours. But yeah, no, totally agree on the points that we've raised there about Callum McGregor. Definitely a debate to have further down the line, even into the season as well. But McGinty, first one back for a while, a couple of weeks. Don't even start rubber duck. Have you enjoyed the nice podcast, McGinty? Have you?
I've enjoyed it. I really, really have enjoyed it. 3 hours is a long time. It's a big stretch for me. But it's been a few weeks, as you said, Stephen. So a lot off the chest. I think I've been quite calm for myself. I've not sworn too much, much like my last time on here, where I think I had comments about my swearing. So that's positive. But I've enjoyed being back on it. It has been a few weeks. I do miss when I'm not on. So glad to be back. Glad to get a few things off the chest, and glad to actually have a conversation where we went on good tangents. Talk about Callum McGregor. Most recent thing, we're talking about the excitement of Ian Atchell and all this. It's been, although I've been negative in ways, it's been a positive podcast. I think, guys, I appreciate it.
It's always good to delve into Celtic chat anyway. And Gav, what about yourself, mate? You've enjoyed reaching that 3 hours, mate. I can tell that.
Yeah, and I wasn't even hosting. It's great whenever you're on the pod and you're in the flow of things, and the red wine is on the go. But it's very, very enjoyable. It's good catch up with you guys, and looking forward. It's not a great time being a Celtic fan, but at the same time, it's better than being a Rangers fan.
Oh, fuck. I thought you were going to say better being a Rangers fan. I say, what?
Certainly not. No, look, whenever you go on the podcast, whenever you're in the flow, you really enjoy it. And to the viewers, like, thank you so much for staying with us. Without you guys bringing your comments in, we will just feel like a bunch of idiots talking amongst ourselves. But thank you for giving us that fuel. So thank you. And Stephen, well done for hosting tonight. I know that you weren't prepared for it, but you did very, very well.
Gavin,
thank you very much.
What me and Stephen talked about before you showed up, that actually none of us hosted tonight. This none of us actually hosted. We all just fucking talk shit to each other.
Well, that's it. It helped doing that, didn't it? So, it helped. But no, look, I appreciate everyone sticking with us. That's us closed off until next Friday. We'll have a European game to talk about again with Braga, and then hopefully a good result tomorrow, even though McGinty isn't that confident. But I am.
I've had another beer. It's going to be 3-0 now.
Right, take the 3-0. But everyone who stayed with us and is going to watch and catch up, stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.
Bye.